Hello, you're welcome to The Big Issue. We are live from our studios here at 5 Owula Hansen Link and number 11 Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. My name is Selom Adonu, especially welcoming you to today's edition of your favorite Saturday morning current affairs program, The Big Issue. A number of things have happened this week. Interestingly, when we thought that the domestic debt exchange program was wrapping up, we had, the shock of our lives yesterday. An unprecedented thing happened. The former Chief Justice, Sophia Akuffo, joined the demonstrators or those who picketed at the Finance Ministry, calling for an exemption from the program. She said a number of things. For example, she does not understand how Ghana came to accrue the kind of debt we have come to be saddled with, for which reason we have to do the debt restructuring. She also thinks that sacrificing the aged is wickedness. Sacrificing the aged, people who have worked, toiled their whole life to build a country, sacrificing their gains or their monies in the twilight of their lives is wickedness, and even the manner in which the debt exchange program is being carried about is illegal. She says she does not mind going to court to vindicate her rights. Contract is a contract, and the sanctity of contract must be respected or must be adhered to. But really, what sacrifice is the government itself making? Earlier in the week, we saw a reshuffle of a kind. Others have called it a replacement, appointments. Others have also called it a mini reshuffle. What sacrifices is the government itself making to reflect the circumstances of the state? The reshuffle, as you may want to call it, is actually a slightly expanded version of the old government as we had it. One person has been elevated to the position of a minister of state from a deputy minister. That is quite some expansion. Of course, the former minister of state at the finance ministry's position was replaced, or it was filled by a deputy minister as well. So in terms of squaring it off, we had one person moving up. People have said that constitutes two people moving up, but one in a new created role. People have said that constitutes an expansion of government machinery at a time where we are talking about burden sharing, sacrificing, etc. What really does government want to do? Is it a case that the situation they are confronted with is so huge that they need a bigger government to be able to deal with it? Mind you, when President Akufo-Addo took over in 2017, he told us that the mess he inherited required such a huge government, justifying why he appointed over 120 people into government. 6-7 years on, what has the verdict been? Do we still need such a huge government? What happens to all the analysis made by the IES, the IEA, the CDD, etc., on how government can rationalize its numbers and cut down on expenditure? That will engage our attention today. Also, we will look at the matter of the COVID-19 expenditure audit. What actually triggered the audit report? Was it in furtherance of the IMF program, or it was just a routine thing done by the Auditor General as is enjoined by law to do? The matter of the publication of the report has become a very thorny one. Is it a public interest matter versus the legality of the publication? The Attorney General is saying that he does not think that the report should be published on the website of the Auditor General as has been done. On the other side, the Auditor General is also enjoined by law to publish same immediately he submits the document to Parliament. So where do we stand? The Attorney General says that the way we interpret the two documents or the two laws must be towards the achievement of a certain objective. What would our objective be? What interpretation rules can we apply to this? One talks about submitting the document to Parliament, Parliament doing all it has to do, appointing a committee, etc., to look at it. Another saying that once it is submitted to Parliament, it must be published. Are the two mutually exclusive? In furtherance of accountability, transparency, etc., what should we be looking at? That will also engage our attention today. I'll take a short break, return, and then I'll introduce my guests. We'll get a discussion underway. But in the meantime, you can join the discussion via our WhatsApp line 020-444-7033, 020-444-7033, and we'll be happy to share your views with the rest of your world. Once again, my name is Selom Adonu. Welcome to The Big Issue. You're welcome back to the big issue. Welcome to insightful conversation and riveting analysis here on the big issue on 97.3 Citi FM. We are looking at the former Chief Justice's, action yesterday. She joined the guys picketing the pensioner individual bondholders who had been picketing at the premises of the Finance Ministry from Monday, protesting their inclusion in the domestic debt exchange program. She joined them yesterday. Said she's a pensioner and she's a bondholder as well. And so she is not happy about the way the program is being carried out. She thinks that not a lot has been said to them. They've not been engaged enough. And the way it's being carried out is heartless, more or less. She thinks it is wicked, it is illegal, and it is so wrong, in her own words. She is thinking that government is sacrificing its aged for the program. But what sacrifices is government itself making? Government has announced some reshuffle of a sort. Analysts have said that it constitutes a kind of expansion of government. We will look at that. What measures is government putting in place to rein in its own expenditure? Mind you, government wants to spend more this year than it did spend last year. Should government seeking to spend more in a year that we are obviously in a crisis? Where is it going to get the money from? There's going to be a huge budget deficit. How are we going to finance that? These are the things that, analysts have said government should be looking at. To help us with the discussion this morning will be Godwin Eduji Tamaklo. He's a private legal practitioner and a member of the National Democratic Congress. Alfred Thompson is a former deputy managing director of the National Investment Bank and a member of the New Patriotic Party. Martin Kpebu is a private legal practitioner and is a convener of the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana. Richard Ahiangba is Director of Communications of the MPP. And Franklin Kujo, President, Imani Africa. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Yesterday, just when we thought the domestic debt exchange program was wrapping up and the pensioner individual bondholders were also wrapping up their picketing activities for the week at the Finance Ministry. And indeed, that activity did not catch a lot of fire, as we say. Then, the former Chief Justice, the Venerable Justice Sophia Akuffo, arrived at the place, joined them to protest as well. She said that she thinks it is improper that people who have lived their lives, sacrificed for the country, contributed their quota to the development of the country, instead of being allowed to rest in the twilight of their years or life, are now being called upon to lend money to the state. And the manner it is being carried out, she thought was not proper. And so our cameras caught up with her. And then let's hear some of the things she said about government and the program.
Who would have thought that we, the aged people of Ghana, will be driven to this? No, never. And so it's heartbreaking. I'm not as badly affected as quite a lot of people are. But even if I didn't have a single government bond, I would still have come, because older people in a country like this, where we don't have any special programs for the aged other than a pension, and now the pension is what is being threatened with all kinds of interferences. No, I could not really sit by. Yes, and so I felt I had to come. Yes, and I wish more people this age have come, or for that matter, even more young people. There are a number of young people who are here. They are grandchildren, if nothing at all. If we've got something, they too on their birthday, they'll get something valuable from us. But at the same time, we need to protect their future, so that they, when they become our age, will also will have sufficient confidence in their nation to invest in the nation. We've already invested a lot in this nation. We've invested our health, we've invested our youth, we've invested our time as pensioners. We worked faithfully. And that is why we earned pensions. And we cannot be treated with so much. And even the way it's been handled, for me, that's the other thing, because I have a legal background. I was once a judge. And if all the proposals, 1,001 flip-flops and changes and this way and backwards and forwards proposals from the government, if I don't understand, how can the ordinary person understand? But because I also understand, I know that all the proposals they've been making are not based on legality. It's a contract. At the end of the day, that's all that it is. And when I owe somebody, the most I can do is to try and see if they will agree to change the terms of our agreement. But you cannot shove it down our throats, and you cannot insist that because you think you cannot afford it, I should accept whatever you want me to do. No, they cannot do that. As administrators, they should rather be looking at parts of what they are in place to do, what they get paid to do, where they can cut on expenditure, they can cut on waste. They have not even come to prove to us where they've identified wastage and what is being done about it. You and I, you walk around and you see a lot of waste all along. And you don't want to do anything, and you want me to take a haircut. I don't know. With a little bit of hair left on my head, I want it on my head. I'm not going to take a haircut. And I'm not encouraging any Ghanaian to take a haircut. Patriotism is on various levels. And I think most of us have already chalked 99% of patriotism at this time in our lives. So don't let some young whippersnapper come and tell us to cut our expenditure and things like that. And it's not even as if most pensioners are living in luxury. All they've done is to shore up their monies in such a way that that added to their if they are earning pensions from their former places of employment, how they can have room to maneuver. Who said old age has to end up in poverty? It shouldn't.
The former Chief Justice also urged bondholders not to sign onto the domestic debt exchange program.
I'm over 70 now, and I'm no longer a government employee. My mouth has been ungagged, and I'm talking and I'm saying what I feel. And it's important that the elderly in this nation should be respected. One, I find this wicked, I find it disrespectful, I find it unlawful, I find it totally wrong, period. Because you don't solve your problems by sacrificing your aged. That's the last thing you should do, especially when you don't have any services that are specially geared at the comfort and the relief of the aged. The Minister of Finance had better go back to the drawing board and come back with a better proposal, because otherwise nobody is going to. I'm encouraging people not to agree to sign up to anything. Yes, and if need be, we can all go to court. That's all. A contract is a contract, and it has to be respected. And if you want to renegotiate it, come to the table, one, with humility, and come with a yesable proposition, not take it or leave it. Yes, it's all of us, it's our duty to shore up our economy. But we voted government into power to take care of our economy. So we should see where the due diligence is before you tell an aged person to lend you money. Please, they should come again. This doesn't start, it's a non-starter. So that's it. Well, I'm not speaking to the president. He has appointed somebody to take care of our money. And I remember when Ken Ofori-Atta was first appointed in 2017. I remember a statement he made that he sees his responsibility as Minister of Finance to protect the public purse. If you've not protected the public purse, why should it be us?
Also, that was former Chief Justice Sophia Akuffo joining demonstrators, or old people who went to the Finance Ministry, premises of the Finance Ministry yesterday, Friday, to picket, to protest their inclusion in the domestic debt exchange program. They say that as old people who depend on the coupons from their bond investments to cater for themselves, they do not feel it appropriate to be included in the program. They want to be exempted. But the Finance Minister has always maintained that it's voluntary. So now it's voluntary, and the Finance Minister has said you can self-exempt. Why are they still there? Because you can decide to join or not. After all, it's voluntary. We want to understand a bit of that. But I guess Eduji Tamaklo Godwin, private legal practitioner, member of the NDC, Alfred Thompson, former Deputy MD, National Investment Bank, MPP member, Franklin Kujo, President Money Africa, Martin Pebu, private legal practitioner, Richard Ahiagba, Director of Communications of the MPP. Godwin, let me start off with you. You know the former Chief Justice quite well. I'm sure you've practiced, obviously, many times before her. Was it a big deal that she joined the picketers or the demonstrators yesterday and said some of the things she said?
Okay, so good morning to our cherished listeners and viewers, and my co-panelists and my colleague, my learned friend, Shalom. So we find ourselves in a situation where anybody who knows her ladyship, the former CJ, Sophia Akuffo, she had come on board in terms of our national conversation with a certain level of conviction. And that is what she is known for. She will tell you her peace of mind, regardless of whoever you are. It's instructive to note, and this for the record, remember that she was appointed by the Jerry Rawlings administration
to the Supreme Court.
To the Supreme Court. She stayed on at a point almost the longest serving Supreme Court judge.
Yes.
Then subsequently, Mr. Akufo-Addo appointed her, went through the normal constitutional requirements, and became the Chief Justice of this Republic. So the greater part of the Akufo-Addo presidency, in fact, the first term, she was the Chief Justice of the Republic. It's also instructive to note that beyond everything, if you read her judgments over the period, she had always come on board. And look, she's the type who doesn't care dissenting.
Yes.
So if you look at the famous decision, the parliamentary election decision, Zakaria Nyimakan, the Wolensi parliamentary decision. Whereas the majority of the judges said, when it comes to parliamentary election petition hearing, the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction relative to the petition itself, and that all kinds of appeal terminates at the Court of Appeal. She dissented. She doesn't care being a lone ranger. So I'm just putting these matters in perspective so people will know the kind of person. And I recall the last matter I appeared before her was a matter where two NDC MPs, in the person of Honorable Kodo, the whole Central MP, and Richard Koshiga, felt that the constitutional threshold, that is the amount of money that is put into the District Assembly Common Fund, when Ken Ofori-Atta became the finance minister, he tried to change that 5% of your revenue should go into the District Assembly Common Fund. Ken Ofori-Atta decided, for whatever it's worth, to take away petroleum revenue from the total revenue. So by so doing, the 5% becomes smaller into the District Assembly Common Fund. So myself and my senior partner, Dr. Ayene, representing the two NDC MPs, went to the Supreme Court to challenge the constitutionality of that. And she agreed. obviously she presided. And the Supreme Court agreed and ordered Ken to do the re-engineering well to include petroleum revenue because it's all part of Ghana's total revenue.
Yes.
And by so doing, the amount of money that had to go into the District Assembly Common Fund now increased. Even that one, I recall, when the decision came, getting Ken Ofori-Atta to even comply with the Supreme Court decision became a problem. I remember vividly writing letters from our law firm, threatening him that we will cite him for contempt. And not only that, you know that the Constitution itself says that if you fail to comply with the orders of the Supreme, even if you are president, it constitutes grounds for your removal. Yeah. So when we put all those, I think the subsequent budget, he started including the petroleum revenue into the bulk. But by which time, the economy had already fallen so low that there was not much to give to the District Assembly Common Fund. I am putting in perspective the kind of person who yesterday decided to picket or to join pensioners of this republic to send a very clear message to government of Ghana that, listen, if you want people to help you out of a mess that you have created, the way is not to put gun on their head. What Ken Ofori-Atta is doing with this domestic debt exchange program is take it or leave it. It is essentially to put gun on the heads of people. Look, what has happened so far with this the domestic debt exchange program? We have been told, for instance, that the banks have agreed, right? The banks have agreed because these are banks that are under regulation. Yeah. If you're under regulation, under a very vindictive government like the Akuffo administration,
I don't know about the vindictiveness.
Yes. After that, you can. I mean, you have the right to issue your disclaimer. But the point ought to be made clear that people have seen how banks that were perceived, quote unquote, to have wronged in the past, how they were treated, right? We have seen how a bank like Heritage Bank, with all the issues, in the sense that it was very solvent, how its license was revoked over very flimsy excuses. So these bank managers, aware of how things have happened in the past, obviously surrounded. And like I told you, Ken is treating this domestic exchange program like an armed robber who had come to your house with a gun pointed right on your head, and at the same time he is telling you that you have a choice. How ironic that is. What is the conversation about? If you look at the exposures to this whole public, the domestic debt, the banks constitute about 33% in terms of exposure. If you look at pensioners, right? How many of them? Very small number.
As in pensioner bondholders.
Yes, pension bond, like
yes,
the people
who hold bonds.
Hold bonds. Then workers whose pensions have also been used, that category is also there. But in all this conversation, our friends in the MPP are also looking at the politics, the electoral advantage relative to this domestic debt exchange program. And when I say this, what I'm trying to say is this. If you look at workers today in Ghana, that's over 600,000. With all their dependents.
Government workers.
I mean government workers. If you put all their dependents and others together, we are dealing with not less than 3 million people. If you touch the savings of over 3 million people, you can't survive in any election. Now, if you look at the number of pensioners who are bondholders, the number compared to active workers is minimal. So government sees that it is easier to negotiate or exempt pension funds that are within government, what shall I say? Because you see, Salom, if not, look at the amount of money involved, about 15 billion relative to pension funds. When it comes to pensioners holding bonds, it's about 2 billion. So if there is anything that you can exempt, which one would you exempt? Is it not the two? Is it not the two? Yes. Because if it's about freeing the fiscal space, then it is easier exempting the two than the 15. But the only reason why he is interested in the 2 and not the 15 billion is that the electoral consequence. Is the electoral consequence. And the evidence is there. Because if you recall in 2020, when it became obvious that the banking sector cleanup and persons whose monies have been kept in the various banks amounted to almost 4-point-something million, if I recall.
Billion.
No, million. The number of customers.
As an individual.
The total number of people. Okay.
Right? So what did government do? Even when government did not budget for the payments, the last minute they had to find money to do what? To pay them because of the electoral consequences of keeping those people unattended to. So it's important that in situating this conversation, we look at the game plan of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta.
But Ken Ofori-Atta is a politician. He has a political party. Shouldn't he be considering also the electoral consequence of his actions? They are politicians.
No, that is why I'm saying that the electoral consequence, at this point, Ken Ofori-Atta, in terms of the options available to him, are limited. So either way, he would have to restructure our debt.
Yes.
Now, the multilateral and bilateral debts, it's difficult to manage it in this manner. Now, when he looks at the domestic debt, it's over 182 billion, right? So it is this amount that he is tweaking. So he looks at you, the banks. He said, okay, come for this ABCD arrangement. Regulatory, they are under regulation. So you have to play ball. Then he looks at the other layer, pension funds. He looks at it. These are persons. As for banks, they are what you call artificial persons, right? Quote unquote, they don't vote. Let me put it in that way. They don't vote. So you can easily squeeze them into submission. But the next available one, which had to do with pension funds, it directly affects over 600,000 workers of this country. Now, if 600,000 workers of this country rises up against you, you can't survive electorally. So quickly, he exempted them upon the threats. The next available category is the pensioners holding bonds. What is the number? Even the amount involved is just about 2 billion Ghana cedis. So it is even easier to exempt them. Because if it's about creating fiscal space, exempting 2 billion is easy than exempting 16 billion. Because the more you get the 16 billion committed, it frees you over 16 billion Ghana cedis. 16
billion has challenges. It will lead to social unrest, industrial actions. The system will become ungovernable.
No,
you can't
so that
do
is why I'm saying that. So they are looking at the political consequence.
But is it not fair to do so?
It's not.
To look at the political consequences, the social consequences.
No, it's not social.
The social
it's electoral benefits.
Yes, but the social consequences will impact the electoral consequences. The fortunes electorally
so that
will
is
be
why I'm
impacted
saying that.
by the social
So you see,
issues.
it's like, I'm sure you've had the benefit of doing game theory. You understand? So you are looking at possibly a Nash equilibrium, where the best question you are asking yourself is that under the circumstance, who, if I sacrifice, will not hurt me the most electorally? And under the circumstance, he sees that conveniently, if I hurt pensioners holding bonds, I'll be better off in the overall equation. And that has been the game plan. Look, if you listen to former CJ, and from all the conversation, she makes the point. He said, how in God's name did we accrue the debts? The answer is simple. Ken Ofori-Atta became a finance minister with one thing in mind: borrow to manage the depreciation of the city. And so consistently from 2017, you will notice that consistently, 2017, he did a 2.25 Franklin Templeton bond. 2018, he did another 2 billion euro bond. Now he went into the euro bond market. 2019, he did another 2 billion euro bond. Even when COVID came, he did another 2 billion combined with the IMF Rapid Credit Facility. That notwithstanding, even in 2021, he did another one. The only problem started in 2022. If you recall, when the credit rating agencies downgraded us, it became difficult for us to move into the international financial market. What options were available to CAD in order to provide a certain stability for the city? Because effectively what he was doing with the city was to give the city performance-enhancing drugs. So he was giving the city steroids. So every year he needs to get $2 billion to show up our international reserve, to provide an artificial sense of stability. That is what his economics was doing. The combined effort of Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and Ken Ofori-Atta yielded that particular effort. So their only hope was e-levy, and e-levy failed in a very spectacular manner. What options were there?
They blame your side for bad-mouthing the e-levy and not making it work.
So what about Ghanaians who rejected it eventually when they got a pass?
No, they said their minds had been poisoned already.
By
your people.
The least they can do is to insult the intelligence of Ghanaians. Look, you have had the benefit of studying tax. In my first degree, I did public finance. And taxation was one of the courses. In fact, the then Professor, now Dr. Kwamban Wako, my lecturer in public finance. There's one thing that he kept saying, that you cannot pass a tax that touches people's savings. Because in the developed economies, what they've done is to develop on the basis of savings. So if you are going to have a tax that essentially touches people's savings, because the money is on your wallet, it's actually a saving for you. So if you have a tax that is going to touch people's savings, they are going to rebel, no matter who they are. So people naturally reacted in the manner in which they did. And that is why you notice that the e-levy failed. So what options were they left now? To now go to the Bank of Ghana for overdrafts. Look, Selom, you and I are lawyers. You know that the amended Bank of Ghana Act clearly forbids the governor of the Bank of Ghana and the persons associated with the Bank of Ghana from giving overdraft or any other instrument to government beyond 5% of the previous year's total revenue. As we speak today, first in 2020, Governor Addison gave the Akufo-Addo administration 10 billion Ghana cedis by way of what? Borrowing.
And is it not because of the COVID difficulties we had? So,
which COVID difficulties?
Because we needed more money.
First of all, what were the COVID expenses? Free water, free electricity. Correct.
But government lost money because government institutions were not working.
Hold on. These monies were supposed to have been given to government. Correct. You do know that government immediately went to Parliament and got Parliament to relax the stabilization fund that allowed government to pull 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. That's 200 million from the stabilization fund. That alone gave this government 1.2 billion. It is that 1.2 billion that they use for free water, free electricity, free food. They use all the insurance for public, health workers. Then 600 million of that was supposed to be used for business support services. So in terms of government actual expenditure, but when the COVID report came, the special audit, it became clear that what government actually used the COVID-19 funds for was budgetary support, giving monies to district assemblies. How is that COVID-19 associated expenditure? So these are constitutional and statutory expenses.
Very well.
So the point ought to be made, and I need to make this point clearly.
Quickly, yes.
When the former CJ asked the question, obviously rhetorical, how did we get here? It was the unbridled borrowing associated with the economic management team chaired by Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia with Ken Ofori-Atta in there. I have always maintained, and this position I've made it very clear, that if Ken Ofori-Atta has taken a bit of self-dealing out of his management of the Ghanaian economy, will not be where we are. You will recall that the IMF, the World Bank director, Malpass, had cause to say that government of Ghana had the opportunity to sign on to the debt suspension initiative, correct? The DSSI,
yes.
The debt service suspension initiative, Do you know why government of Ghana could not have signed on to that program? Which would have freed us the opportunity of using so much to service our debt.
But at the time, we should have been on the IMF. Shouldn't we have been on the IMF to qualify for the DSSI?
No. Because it was, you see, remember that consistently from 2017, we've been doing 30 billion Ghana cedis in terms of interest payment and amortization. By 2021, we're doing about 45 billion Ghana cedis in interest payment and amortization. If you have this kind of exposure, I recall when we were in power, the maximum debt service, interest payment and amortization that we ever did was 11 billion Ghana cedis in 2016. That was the highest. From 2017 consistently to date, you have not done less than 33 billion. So there's no fiscal space for you to do the other things. In any case, Selom, you recall the time H.E. John Dramani Mahama kept saying that, you know what, the time has come for you to go to the IMF for a program. You saw the arrogance, the posturing of government officials. In fact, there was a deputy minister who even said that, if we go to the IMF, they will send small boys. It is that arrogance. Do you know that if we are signed on to the IMF program a year earlier, we will not be in the situation we find ourselves? In any case, Salom, so that maybe I can just bring my thought on this matter. In any case, Salom, at the time when we said we were signing on to the IMF program, right, this government had the biggest financial envelope ever since 1992. Look, from 2009 to 2016, under Atamil's John Mahama Emisata, the envelope of financial resources that we had was 248 billion Ghana cedis. Today, in the space of 6 years, the Akufo-Addo administration, they have gotten in excess of 560 billion. All this money, with all this money, you have still run the economy aground. Why? If you go to Legon Hall, the motto in front of Legon Hall is what? To whom much is given, much is what? Expected.
Very well. But of course, I know that the responses will be that they have introduced more programs. Which are social intervention. But can you just give me you've been speaking for a while. Let me bring in Alfred. Okay. Alfred, the former CJ joining the demonstration yesterday surely should get you thinking. And she said a number of things in a way that very influential people who are not politicians don't say. Asking rhetorical questions, saying, amongst other things, that it appears that we are sacrificing the aged to solve a problem they essentially were not part of, etc. That should really get you thinking.
Good morning once again, Salom. Good morning, Eduji. And good morning to those who are watching us and listening and watching through Facebook and other social media. It's quite interesting that the CJ has shown us that she hasn't got any political coloration around her. And it takes me back to the time when she was elected and the NDC had this paint all over her that she is one MPP, she is the relative of the president, and that she was a biased person and she wasn't going to do the work of the CJ but going to work on behalf of the government and people of the MPP. Today, the same Eduji is sitting here eulogizing her that she is strict, she dissents from certain comments and things. So you ask yourself, when she was elected the CJ in this country, were they not part of this country or they were just trying to be mischievous? It's for the Ghanaians to answer.
But I mean, to be fair,
personally,
she went through the parliamentary vetting. I don't recall any difficulty. She didn't have any difficulty.
She didn't have. I mean, when you go through parliamentary vetting, you didn't have.
But if she gives a judgment, we have a right as a people.
When she was, I was saying that when she was nominated as CJ. Didn't you hear all the comments that came out from NDC?
But she went through parliament. We didn't.
It doesn't matter.
No, but people
before
will
she
say,
went through Parliament,
Alfred, if you are
what were
into
the comments?
If you are appointed into a position right now, people will say things, including things you don't even know about yourself.
I'm saying that
yes.
things that were said about her.
Were they official
all
comments from the NDC? As
no, NDC made so many comments, wrote so many things. Go to social media.
Oh,
Google right now. You see the things.
What I know is,
you see
at the
things
time
that
she was
they
appointed CJ, she was the longest serving, justice.
I'm not saying that she didn't do well.
And she had
I'm not
distinguished
saying,
herself.
I'm not saying that.
If it's about
politics,
let's talk. Yes.
What I'm stating.
Focus on the issue.
No, he's staying focused.
Why
actually.
are you trying to?
Don't be derailed. Don't be derailed
at all. I'll come back. I've written what I have to.
Go ahead.
I'll write. I'll deal with it at the right time.
You're disrupting him.
I'm stating here on record that when her name was mentioned, the comments that came with it from the opposition side was so ill that one would have thought that she sitting here would have shown some political coloration that she's MPP. But her comment alone yesterday shows that she's an independent-minded Ghanaian.
It's not because she's been affected personally.
Whether she's affected personally or not, I thought the president told us that we shouldn't be spectators, but we should be citizens.
Okay.
Isn't she a citizen?
She is.
Can she talk?
She's been on guard now.
Whether she's saying she's on guard because when as a CJ, as a government official, you can't just say anything. Yeah. You can't go and pick it. As a government official, you cannot go and pick it in front of what do you call it? Another government agency that your money is lost. And so at the moment, once she is no longer officially a government official, she has the right as a citizen.
Even though in some other capacities she's a government appointee on the University of Ghana Council.
Oh, that is that.
No, she's even a member of the Council of State.
No, I think CJ Wood is there. CJ Wood is
only
there.
one.
Yes,
Okay,
CJ Wood is there.
Yes. So Wood is there, but that is. I mean, it's a normal, natural thing.
Yeah.
Coming to the issues, in fact, if we are going to talk about her, I've had an issue with her before in court when I was at NIB, and we had this famous case, financial misappropriations that happened before, and it was, we were being sued for millions of dollars.
The
Dominion case. That
Standard Offshore.
Yeah, that went to her. And that fateful morning, Chachu Chishkata was our lawyer.
Was your lawyer?
In fact, he did the first part. He took his fee, and he said that once it's going back to court, he has to do it. And he was going to charge the same fee, which we told him that we can't afford. So we are going for another lawyer, which he said he wasn't going to accept. So that morning we told him that
and that caused some difficulty in the court, I recall.
So we got there, and I was the person who was representing the bank that day. Unfortunately, my boss couldn't come. So when we got there, we told him that, listen, we can't pay the money you're asking for. I don't want to mention the money, but we can't pay that amount you are asking for. It's beyond us. It's like crippling the bank. Then why don't we give that money to Dominion and then be free and come out of this? And he wasn't, accepting what we are saying. So I was told that, okay, when we get there and things start, just stand up and just tell the court that, listen, this is not your lawyer and you don't approve of him leading your case for you. So you have taken another lawyer and everything. I did that, and then Chief Justice said I should sit down. She said me. Then they gave me another sign that, listen, just be pushing, So I stood up again and told her that I still don't approve of Chachu Chikata leading our case for us. Then it got to her and said, young man, I don't approve of this behavior in my court. If you do, I'll walk you out.
She's no nonsense.
And I just decided that I'm not going to talk again. I don't want an issue to happen to me. So that's how she behaves. She puts everything aside and she just deals with you as a child. Yes, she's been affected one way or another by this. Yes, she's a pensioner. Yes, she has her obligations in which to meet all these things. And so I don't see anything wrong with her going out to talk about things that are worrying her. And above all, she's a citizen of Ghana. She hasn't got anywhere else to go and fight her case, but in front of to picket with the other members of society, pensioners, and also to tell the finance minister that, listen, if the West comes to the West, we'll all go to court. I have stated over and over again that this is a contract between the government of Ghana and the people of Ghana, the bondholders. I have stated over and over again too that it cannot be a one-sided decision that once you've signed a contract, you would one side can decide that, listen, I'm abrogating it or I'm changing the rules of the game to suit me. It can't happen. Minister himself has come out to state over and over again that this is voluntary. It is not compulsory. However, he's pleading, and he's always used the word that he's pleading with people to sign on so that we all don't fall into the mess that is ahead of us. There are so many things that Eduji brought up, and I'll plead with him that where we've gotten to, and in this case, we should do it devoid of politics. The moment you bring some word or two which sounds like it's being political coloration, you kill the spirit of how we want to go as a nation. Why am I saying this? He used the word vindictive Akuffo government, which I think wasn't fair and it wasn't right, because we have a subject we are dealing with. Let us deal with the subject. Your other side, when you get on your political platform, you can do that. But we have a nation in which at the moment you have economic crisis, which we need to control or we need to solve.
But the crisis was caused by politics.
Okay.
No,
I wrote all your...
I just wanted...
I knew everything you were saying, but I wrote it down.
Yes. Go ahead.
So, all these things that you were saying, and electoral consequences, and that when he does... Listen, even if you touch one person, you haven't touched only one person, you've touched a family. You've touched maybe a whole city or a whole kingdom. You've touched a whole tribesman or something.
But that effect multiplies.
And that's what I'm saying, that if you touch one person, you are touching a whole lot of people.
So if you touch 10 people,
Minister
you are
knows,
a whole lot.
Yes. So Minister knows what is going in. And that is why he's not using brute force. He's pleading. And he's kept on pleading and pleading and pleading that, listen, we've all come to this stage, whether it was caused by A or caused by B. At the moment, what we are in, we need to solve it and come out of it. I need your support and everything. He talked about the banks had to play ball and everything. The banks could have decided that, listen, I'm not going to do this. And the minister could not do anything about it. Now, they've opened the SFS system for them that, listen, if the worst case scenario comes in for the banks and also the, insurance houses and everything, if the worst case comes in, you can fall on the SFS.
That is 15 billion.
Yes, but at least, it's revolving, or it goes on every year.
You say every year, because we've not been told that.
I believe
is painted as if it's 15 billion. And
I believe that it's not going to be 15. If it's 10 years, 15 billion, I don't believe so.
Because that's the impression we get.
I don't believe
and
so.
We are not even sure about the funding of that FSA.
I would not confirm whether it's every year or so, but I know that at the moment...
the Financial Stability Fund.
But it should be channeled through
the
GATS.
Yes.
So at the end,
and that's what Mahama Rega and co are complaining about. But that's a different issue.
No, that one can be sorted out. Conversations are still ongoing. It's not a dead-end issue. So we cannot say that, listen, upon all this, what we need to do as a government is get about 80% sign on. At the moment, you are hovering around 50%. You need to, whether even some people are signing on or not, you need to at least get everyone's buy-in into this. It's not a matter of, okay, the three of us are bondholders. You have signed on and the rest, I don't need them, so I don't need to. But you need to let everybody come or have the spirit of the buy-in, that, listen, where we are, it's a choice. The government can decide, okay, let's look for money internally, let's pay them off. And then what happens? Inflation skyrockets, the economy goes bad, everything goes haywire. The money that has been given to you becomes null and void, or it becomes nothing at the end of the day. Or let us correct the mistakes that have happened. Let us see how we can put things together. So even when you are giving your money, at least it becomes substantial. Because when you look at the fair market value as against what people are getting, you ask yourself, am I better off leaving it for a year or two or so? But you see, we keep on shifting and managing
the difficulty they have raised is they are pensioners, and they were.
I agree with that. I'll get to that.
Okay.
I agree with that totally.
Okay.
That they are pensioners, and that is why I keep on saying that it's a negotiation situation. And you realize that when we started, it was a 0 coupon rate. Now they've looked at the 5%, they've looked at the 10%, they've looked at other things that they are putting in. It can still be negotiated. It's still ongoing. It's rather unfortunate that it's about the 5th time they've postponed the date.
Time is running.
As at yesterday,
next time we have a match.
as at yesterday, I didn't know whether they are postponing it again.
So I think there's a 14th or 16th day to finalize everything.
Yes, I think because the Chief Justice issue came in, it's overtaking the information that we should have received yesterday. He talked about the borrowings of the government and everything. You see, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta cannot decide that, listen, I'm going to borrow, and that is it. He goes to borrow and uses the money. There is a parliamentary approval for every borrowing that goes on. Parliament, there's finance committee, I believe, has to sit down and analyze the borrowings that are coming in, how we are paying, how everything is going to go, and everything. So there's an approval process. That's what I'm saying. He cannot on his own decide that, listen, I'm going to borrow. So if he's going
but there's a parliamentary process. That's very true. Yeah. And the decision of Parliament, notwithstanding the dissent voices, is seen as the decision of Parliament. But of course, we know some of the issues that the minority, at the time raised. Okay? Minority because they did not have the numbers, we didn't really hear a lot of them.
Minority raised those decisions after. They didn't raise during that.
Sometimes they raise red flags.
Have they worked out in Parliament for?
But there are many reasons why. There are many ways they can protest. They can raise the issues. They can walk out. They can do other things.
Have they worked out on approval of any loan before? Ask yourself that question.
So the walkout for you should be it.
It should be on record.
No, what I mean is, once they don't walk out, despite their disapproval.
I mean, if I say I disapprove and I go and approve the loan. I mean, at the voting stage, what is the use? What is the use of that? Let it go on record. Let us take the Hansard and see that when all those loans approved, and by a majority decision by parliamentarians. I didn't see that they said that 20% or 30%.
Often voice vote, and the majority was overwhelming.
Yes,
so the majority voice vote.
At the end of it, they approved all the loans.
Every other voice.
So you see, so you can't sit down after that and blame one person. And let's be realistic. Listen. The loan wasn't once, it wasn't twice. The bonds were not once or twice. Every year, consistently, it's been ongoing. So if you have not been able to account for the previous one and tell us how you are managing to pay, why do we allow you to go again? So let us not behave as if, one person decided to bring the country to this stage. Let us not behave that way. Let us take responsibility for everything we are doing. Then you come to, he was bringing, in this particular case, he was bringing the economic management team in. Economic management team does not approve loans. Economic management team just only offers advice to the cabinet and to the president. They can decide to take it or not to take it. So if they've taken or they've brought up a solution, and the cabinet decides that, this is the way we are going, you cannot blame economic management team that what are they sitting there for? Or their decision.
But the economic management, there's a vice president
who chairs it.
Yes, and that's huge. The vice president
he chairs
it. And the finance minister.
Let me tell you something.
Do you know what the
buck starts with the president. Oh, please. The Simpapeni is someone who is on the chair and is not treated as the person in the chair.
So is that the kind of
the chair is the end. The chair of any government ends with the president. You see, don't confuse issues and take your write your thing. Write your thing. Write your thing and let me explain.
So the point you're making is that even though Dr. Bawumia is vice president, forget about economic management. Is vice president, and he was sold to us as an economic whiz kid, the man to solve the economic difficulties that John Mahama had put Ghana in.
He can only proffer solutions to the president.
Yes,
and the president can decide.
But the president said he was going to make him run the economy. The president said that on many occasions.
But it ends still with
and to even, I mean,
don't confuse it.
But we know why he came.
Yes,
and he was sold to us a certain way. We believed it.
Let me ask you something.
We voted for him, or we voted for the team to come.
We know you are very good on this show, and they decide that they are changing you. What can you do about it?
But Bawumia cannot be changed like just anybody.
No, I'm saying that they decide that. I mean, the management or the head of this place decides that he's changing and bringing something.
No, there's nothing I can do. But in this case, We are not changing. We are not changing. Just listen. No, don't mind Edwiji. Listen.
Now, let me explain what I'm telling you.
Bawumia has not been changed as vice
and
president.
he cannot be changed.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that the president can decide to take his advice or not to take his advice. True or false?
But he said so. Just
True or
supposing
false?
that.
True or false? Selim, don't let's change.
No, it can happen.
It's not that it can happen.
But
the president
told us.
Listen, I'm coming. The president has the honors to take his advice or not to take it. Bawumia has preferred his advice to the president.
And the president is not taking it.
The president,
telling us an authority.
I'm telling you that he can only give advice. He cannot say that I am going to do this. And
so
that
you
is it.
are telling us on authority that Bawumia preferred his
I'm telling you
advice
on
or solution
authority
to the
that the economic management team would always advise the president and cabinet.
You are telling us
and
that
it is upon cabinet to take the decision or not to take the decision.
Yes,
go and read. Go and read the minutes of cabinet and see whether they take it or not.
If anybody had access to that, but you know what? Wait. You know what?
Why is it on me?
No, wait. Listen to me. Don't mind. Don't mind Edwiji.
No, why is it so jittery?
Don't mind Edwiji. Listen to me. I'm saying that. Who are the members of the economic management team?
It's made up of so many.
A lot of them.
Yes.
About 80 or 90,
even the senior advisor,
about 80 to 90% of those people on the committee,
trade minister is, the finance minister
are members of cabinet.
The finance
so
minister
if they with the economic know-how, because they are very good at it, that's why they put them there.
Okay.
And virtually the same people who sit in cabinet, they can influence the rest of their colleagues.
I'll give you another lead.
To go the way of their advice.
I'll give you another lead. Go and check the meetings of the economic management team and see those who were present.
Very well. So this is the big issue. We are coming to you live from 97.3 Citi FM. The discussion. So we're looking at the former Chief Justice's presence at the Finance Ministry yesterday and getting into the DDEP matters with it. We will eventually look at some of the sacrifices that the government is asking Ghanaians to make, juxtaposing it against the sacrifices the government itself is making. Over-bloated government, high expenditure, etc. Helping us do the discussion, Edwiji Tamaklo of the NDC private legal practitioner, Alfred Thompson, former Deputy MD, National Investment Bank, MPP, Martin Pebu, private legal practitioner, who is here to have a bite, Richard Ahiangba, Director of Communication, MPP, also here to have a bite, and Franklin Kujo, President of Money Africa, also here to have a bite. We'll take a short break, return, and then delve into the matter some more. Yeah, welcome back to the big issue. Very big welcome to our TV viewers as well. We are on Citi TV, obviously, and on 97.3 Citi FM. We are looking at yesterday's picketing at the Finance Ministry. The former CJ, Sophia Akuffo, was there, which gave some impetus to the struggle. And she said quite a number of things. She doesn't understand why old people, pensioners who have saved or bought government bonds, who have contributed their quota to the development of the country, must be treated the way she thinks they are being treated. She thinks the way they are handling the matter is illegal, it is wicked, and it's very wrong. These are her words. And she says that it's not fair that government is asking them to make sacrifices, very old people, to make sacrifices to pay for the, quote-unquote, the sins of the government in terms of, borrowing and the debt situation we have hanging around our necks. But what is the government itself sacrificing? What is the government itself doing in furtherance of its call on the people to burden share? Recently, there was a mini reshuffle of a sort. The net effect of that is that there has been an expansion in government. Government also wants to spend more this year than it spent last year. Should we be spending more on what exactly this year that we acknowledge we are in a crisis, we are in a debt exchange program, we are chasing the IMF for a program, or we should actually be cutting the purse and being a bit more frugal in our expenditure? How do we even finance the gaping deficit that may appear in the end? That will further exacerbate the problem? Should pensioner bondholders be the people to be called upon to assist in this matter? That is the matter engaging our minds. And we've heard from Eduji Tamaklo, private legal practitioner and member of the NDC, Alfred Thompson, former deputy MD, National Investment Bank, and also MPP. Richard Ahiagba is director of communications of the MPP. He's on. Franklin Kujo, our usual suspect, Imani Africa president, is also on. And then Martin Pebu, private legal practitioner, convener, Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana, is also on. Richard, I come to you. I have read from social media and listened to some commentary from some of your people in respect of the former CJ's conduct or action yesterday. Many of them have started, if you like, attacking her, asking her certain questions which may not be relevant to the discussion at all. Is this the way to go, or we should actually commend her for coming out to speak her mind?
Well, Shalom, thank you. And I'm sure you can hear me.
Very well. I can hear you so well.
Greetings. Thank you. Warm greetings to my co-panelists and your good self, your viewers, and perhaps listeners on radio. On the matter of the former Chief Justice, I have very little to say, but rather I have quite a bit to say about what Eduji said. So on the CJ, I think that is a democratic right. She felt that she belongs to a category of people whose bonds are called upon voluntarily to participate in an exchange. It's not under duress. Is for people to elect to participate or not to participate. And I don't know if she elected to participate and then come to demonstrate against what she has elected to do. That's confusing for me. The key word for all of us is the basis for participation. Let not that be lost on any of us. That is voluntary. The government is not coercing. The government is appealing to our sense of citizenship, to our sense of patriotism, in realizing the difficulty the country is in, to come in and support and participate. And so I'm confused what exactly she was protesting, because there are people who willingly want to participate. They are participating, and they didn't come out to protest. And so if she has the choice not to participate and she chose not to participate, the basis for her demonstration is not clear. She's a very seasoned lawyer, risen to the very heights. So I'm not in any position to discuss or try to impugn that she didn't process the logic of it. She processed it, but I don't understand why you would have the freedom to choose something. And you are free to choose. Then you are demonstrating something you have freedom.
But yes, if I could just inquire further, let me just inquire further. You know, the gap. Of course, we saw from the beginning what happened to the pension funds. They also had the option to voluntarily participate or not, but upon threats of industrial action, social action, etc., the finance minister, government came out to say they were exempted. It was categorical. They were exempted. Why can't government or the finance minister do same to this small group of people? Say, okay, pensioner bondholders, you are not part of it. We have taken you out. You don't even give them the option to be part of it voluntarily or not. Of course, I've had technical discussions that being exempted by the issuer is different from the person himself exempt or sub-exempting. The two are different, and it's technical. Dr. Duan Anentwi yesterday was trying to explain to the public what that means. But Dr. Duan Anentwi, who for many years led the Security and Exchange Commission, knows exactly what it is. And he said that he is a market person. Kenneth Furata is also a market person. So they both understand what it is. So I'm not sure it will be fair on them to speak as if they do not know what they are doing. Exactly. He knows what he's doing, and he knows why he's leading his people that route.
Solomon, you are trying to rationalize for the CJ and people in a category. I am not debating them. I'm only examining the basis for the demonstration.
Yes, and I'm also pointing out that the basis must be contextualized. We must contextualize the basis. There is sub-exemption and there's an issuer exempting it. They are not the same.
That's okay, but sir, allow me to make my point.
Make the
point. People who are listening, they will be able to process it and So let's allow the conversation. Look, so I'm saying that it's a voluntary participation. You chose to participate or not to participate, but to demonstrate, I don't see the rationale. I don't see the logic, because you are free not to. So something you are free not to participate in, what are you protesting? You don't have a basis, in my view. Now, the rationalization also about why didn't the finance minister choose to exclude this small group of people or that small group of people? The constraint within which the finance minister is working. He's not just sitting there trying to be mean to people. It's not the debt restructure. It's not an exercise to punish people. It's an exercise to solve a national difficulty. I think people need to contextualize that way. And that is the primary context in which this conversation must ensue. Mm-hmm. If you miss that context, you will get to think that he is just there trying to be mean and try to punish people. No. The entire economy is at risk. It's at stake to where if we don't get some effort, underway to try to formalize the domestic debt situation, to create the necessary fiscal room, it would create a situation where we may risk the entire economy. So he's working under constraint. And so that constraint has larger implications for the economy. And so I think that to be fair to the finance minister, we need to appreciate that. And that, for me, is really what we need to address our minds to. And if we do, it would actually soften the positions that we're taking.
Super. But can you quickly respond to my question about how some people, I don't know whether they are affiliates of your party or etc., are trying to attack the person of this former CJ, asking her certain questions, etc. I've seen a lot of that on social media. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but is it the right thing to do? If not, what will you tell these people? Will you tell them to pipe down, or you will leave them to go the route they are going?
Well, I mean, that's why they call it democracy. People, they will express their views one way or the other, but I will not attack her. I will just try to understand the logic, which presently I do not understand, why she would choose to demonstrate when she had the rights, the freedom to choose to participate or not to participate. And so whichever group of people who are attacking her, I will not subscribe to that, but they may have their democratic right to do so. I'm saying that my brother Eduji said a lot of things, and I haven't seen him in a while. I say a very good morning to you, Eduji. But he's gone to town and then has strategically prevented my colleague Thompson from speaking. There is a fundamental difference between the NDC and the MPP. That one, we need to get that. There's a fundamental difference. And I will use one or two examples to explain that, and that will bring to light what Eduji was trying to do. You see, they say, as a man thinketh, so is he. The way the NDC thinks, that's how they govern. They scheme. One, the first thing is that the NDC is a scheming political party that targets public policy for votes. The MPP is the opposite. MPP, we invest in public policy for the purposes of leveraging those public policy, the outcome of those public policy, to legitimize our demand for power. The NDC is the opposite. So in other words, the NDC looks for opportunity. What can we do to justify or to get us votes? It is not to solve a problem necessarily. So they go and hunt for things, low-hanging fruits, that will get them vote. That is not how you develop a country. And I'll give you an example. And he himself myself, with the two of us, happened to come from Volta region. The thing they did in Ho, to build an airport in Ho, is one such thing to, placate and to, kind of lure the people to vote for them, because they have got to put an airport there. There was no economic frame within which that airport fit in the Volta region. It doesn't. the roads that lead to that airport, from Ho to that airport, and the road that leads from Aflao to that airport, and from all other places to that airport are bad. Those roads deserve construction. If the NDC was focusing on policy, the outcome of policy justifying why they should be voted for, they would have constructed those roads rather than putting that white elephant they call an airport there. Number two, Salom, why the NDC is different from the NPP is that the NDC shies away from making critical, difficult policy decisions in this country when they're in government. The NPP engages what consequentially will transform this country. And oftentimes, and this critical issue we are dealing with is example of those moments, transformative moments in history that a political party comes to and say, look, we think that this is the way forward. It's a difficult one, will cost us electorally, but we'll do it. You saw that. The banking sector mess that happened, it happened under the NDC. And somehow they created a false impression for the people who operate in that space that big brother government will always be there to give you liquidity support. So they kept throwing money at the problem. The problem of the banking sector was not merely a problem of money. It was a problem of structure. It was a problem of conduct. It was a problem of people abusing the rules and regulation deficits. But then the NDC, instead of dealing with the difficult issue of reforming and rebuilding the banking sector, they rather threw money at it. The MPP, on the other hand, came and said, look, if we must build a banking sector to last, a banking sector that gives us the foundation to develop this country, then you must do a restructure. A difficult decision the MPP took. The third thing, so there's the difference between the NDC and NPP is that the NDC has a high propensity to depend on aid. The NDC has a high propensity to depend on aid. The MPP, on the other hand, has a high propensity to depend on self-owned Ghana.
Richard, it is appearing to me as if you've sent your own question, and so your own question is what's the difference between NDC and MPP? And you've done an agama, lizard, and you are answering that because that's what you want.
If you wait 1 second, that's what MPG did. If I tell you, if you take your studio now and you draw a map of everything MPG talked about, it was all over the place. He didn't answer a particular question.
Yeah, so but you have set a specific question about what's the difference between NDC and MPP, and you are going at it. So I'll give you a minute to conclude on this.
Okay, so
just conclude on this. Just conclude on your own question.
No, that's not my question, So you see, so I am linking what the issue I've just outlined for you to what Edwigi just said. Edwigi talked about the DSSI, why we didn't participate, high propensity for external aid and support, right? Edwigi talks about the conversation that led to us eventually going to the IMF. Why we said we didn't want to go to the IMF. It was not because we thought going to IMF necessarily was a bad thing, but we decided that if we can fix our own problem, let's investigate and explore the options we have to solve our problem. So the difference I was trying to illustrate for you is clear to the extent that MPP, when we said that we didn't want to go to IMF, the reason is that we felt that true to our form, that let's find our own domestic solution to deal with the problem. As you know, the option that we were exploring didn't materialize because of the tense political environment that happened in our country. So really, there's a critical difference, and that is really what.
And that tense political environment, that tense political environment was also partly due to your lack of dialogue and consultation with the relevant stakeholders in that space. That's if you're talking about e-levy.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think I can grant you that to the extent that you can never finish consultation. You can never finish consultation because it's an endless exercise. You may assume you have consulted everyone, but there are people you have not consulted, and even in that consultation process, you cannot please everybody. So even after you have finished consultation, there are people you have consulted who are not satisfied with the way you are moving forward. So it's an endless process. So that you can only do so much. And the thing is that the motive, the rationale must be what you consider. What is the end game? What are we trying to do? Is it against the state? Is it for the state? What is the long-term benefit? So, for example, they've said this thing about the debt restructure, and former President John Dramani Mahama at the Chatham House speech, he said that he agrees with debt restructure, but except that no consultation and the rest around it. And I'm saying that to the extent that you need to consult, you can never finish consulting. And in fact, you saw that the ministry kept consulting, and as you alluded to, the initial offer they brought have been reconsidered over time, and now where we are, considerably a good place. And if we'll get a chance to discuss the terms and for the categories of bondholders that have been arrived at in the final memorandum, you'll get to see that it has evolved over time. That's evidence of consultation. So it is for us to focus on the real issue. Sometimes the little things that happen along the way, if we then become fixated on those, as opposed to trailing the actual destination where we're going and how we're getting there, we lose the conversation, and then we now become focusing on the things that are incidental to where we are going.
Very well,
that's
Richard.
what EDUG did.
Very well, Richard. So, looking at the portfolio size of these pensioner bondholders, is it so important to be bent on including them in the process that we cannot openly come and say, okay, pensioner bondholders, you are exempted, you are off it, we are not dealing with you anymore in this DDEP? Why should we leave it open and say they can decide to join or not? That is what is creating a problem. If what we hear is correct, it's just about 2 billion out of the whole 137 billion you want to exchange.
Yeah.
Why can't we just, hive that off and focus on the 135 billion and make progress? Because the group we are talking about, they are the aged. They depend on this to buy drugs. We don't even know how long they will live, and they've saved. I mean, it doesn't look good, does it?
No, certainly. I understand. The whole debt restructure thing is not a fun thing for anyone. And that's what I was saying earlier, that it's not a fun thing for the finance minister. I have been close in some of the conversation, and you see his demeanor. And sometimes people think that he puts on his demeanor. The man is that person who, in the heat of things, maintains a certain outlook. But you can see the burden on him in trying to do this. Look, you can swap any number of people. You can take EDUG and make him finance minister tomorrow. He will not cancel the debt restructure. He will not exempt the people he is calling for to be exempted today. If we make you sell up the finance minister,
you don't know that. I may have my own ideas. Richard, you don't know that. All right, so let's conclude for me.
But let me just tell you. So the point is that you are going to be faced with reality. The same way right now, in the midst of this program, you cannot say to hell with all of us. So you want to call all of us off the program. You must shepherd this program to a point, even if you don't want me on the show again, at least you must tolerate, because of what you have promised your viewers, you must go through with the program and say, next time don't bring Rich. That will be your decision, right? So you are in a situation where you have the country to save or to lose if you don't do certain things. So the difficulty of it, I think we have to have a moment to soberly reflect on why is it that the finance minister cannot exclude people. Is it because he doesn't like them? Or is it because he has to achieve a certain outcome, which we know that we have to achieve a restructure of at least 80%. From what I'm understanding, we've got about 70% or so concluded. Why can he not exclude people? Because if he excludes people, we cannot achieve the object for which we'll save the economy. So if you are faced with that decision, So what would you do? In this country, just recently, in 2020, we were faced with the same choice, where our people would die from COVID or we make some necessary investment to save lives. If you are faced with that, I'm sure this one day you can make a decision for me to see. If you are substituted, if you were made the president, hold on. If you were made the president in 2020, if you were the president in 2020, what decisions will you make in respect of saving people's lives and their properties? What decision? Clearly, you are in a situation where your options are binary. You have to do one or the other. There is no middle ground. Because if your choice is between saving the economy or collapsing the economy because you cannot achieve a debt restructure domestically to be able to go external and get a deal done with the IMF, what will you do? So it's not decided that I want to include people because I don't like the look of their face, but it is because if you don't do it, we risk the whole thing. That must be the emphasis of this conversation.
Very well. So
that must be the emphasis.
Yeah, I think I've been very nice to you. You've spoken for over 20 minutes, which is quite good. So that's fine. All right. So let me speak to Franklin. Franklin is a civil society person. He's been following these things, and he's also part of the Bondholders Forum. They've been doing a lot of that. Franklin, does the participation of the former CJ mean anything to the struggle at all? Does it give it impetus? And where are we even in this? Because we're wrapping it all up. I don't know if the participation of the CJ in the thing yesterday gives it a new life, for which reason the system or the powers that be must have to sit and relook at a few things. I don't know where we are actually. But does it give the struggle any impetus at all?
Well, good morning to my good friends, and good to see you, Richard. Well, guys, I mean, Salam, I like the word you use, struggle, and I think it connotes the difficulty people are having with understanding that a part of their funding of funds, investments would have to be pathed in order to achieve a debt restructuring program that obviously from all indications looks quite unbalanced in terms of the burden sharing that the government had wanted everybody to be part of. So I can understand the word you use, struggle, but let me just say that I think the former CJ was categorical that, look, she's fairly comfortable, and that in fact, she suggested that her investments may not even be impacted because she retires on, if you like, comfortable salary or whatever. I think many people miss that. So the big deal for the bondholders or those people you said are struggling with this whole debt restructuring thing is that this is someone who is sympathizing with the cause. And from her position, that is a big deal, really. I mean, I've seen some international wires basically picking the issue up. I mean, to have a former Chief Justice basically coming out clearly and speaking in those terms should be seen as rather sympathizing with the cause rather than she being impacted directly. You understand? So that's the way I see her role, her participation in this whole exercise. But I think something also ought to be said about the reasons why the CJ would have done that. And she also mentioned that without consultations, without properly giving me the opportunity to understand what we are also bringing to the table as a government in this burden sharing arrangement, you cannot unilaterally vary the terms that we have agreed upon. Mm-hmm. I also understand the argument being made by my good friends Alfred and Richard, and indeed the significant members of the MPP, that look, we are in crisis, and that people ought to be supportive of an arrangement like this in order not to further dig ourselves into a hole. But the critical question which still stands, and I think we need to answer that question: what has our good friends at the ministry and indeed the government brought to the table as saying that this is also our part of this burden share arrangement? As we speak, I don't see anything significant at all. In fact, don't forget, that as bondholders we were tasked by the ministry to come up with ideas in order to fiscally readjust, and that work had been done quite professionally, done well, and we had cause to discuss. Since that work was done and submitted, I haven't heard any. You see, you're laughing. You got me laughing as well. Even Richard is laughing. So I haven't heard any. Maybe the minister is under so much pressure, but I think he has a lot of experts who can guide this conversation. I've not heard a single word of commitment that, if I take a critical look at this, whatever I tax these bondholders to come up with, I think the issue around reordering, if you like, restructuring MDAs and the government machinery, which could save me 6 billion Ghana cedis, we can begin from there. I've not heard anything to that effect. So there's still a bit of difficulty in understanding why people ought to be, in fact, and indeed, the pensioner bondholders have made a very good statement. I mean, they've made a good case of themselves. And the optics are quite, unfortunately, should I call it, disturbing, because these are aged people who they are not painting the picture, but the picture being painted out there is that the government is trying to muzzle them out of their investments, even though they are frail and they may not necessarily probably live the next 10, 15 years in order to see the fruition of this restructuring that the government wants them to be part of. So all I can say is that I think the CJ's action was quite timely. Maybe people will say it could have come much earlier, but it was also timely. And I bet you there are many people like that, very senior people who have served in government, not necessarily politicians, who have spoken to some of us. I mean, I've had calls from very, very senior people who also feel very worried that if they came out to probably speak and support this cause, they may be targeted. You know how political terrain really is. Whether it's justified or not, it happens daily as well. So I can only say that this is something the government itself must wake up to, and as many people have started either fairly or unfairly targeting the former CJ, it means that she's made significant impact in that regard.
Yes, let me take you up on this. Many people have said that if the middle class of our country were to be this active, the country wouldn't be where it is. Now we see the activity of the individual bondholders because, I mean, a lot of them arguably fall within the middle class bracket. Now their interests are being attacked, quote unquote, or being affected. So now we see them speaking the way they are doing. When the country was borrowing, people were complaining. If we saw such an action from the middle class of the country, including the CJ and all of that, I don't know if she can qualify to be middle class, but largely yes. If we saw such actions, picketing of these significant people, socially significant people at the finance ministry, making their voices heard, etc., you don't think we could have saved ourselves the difficulty we are in? So the docility of the middle class generally, many have said, is to be blamed for where we are. Do you agree to that?
Well, overwhelmingly, yes. You know, I have had my pet subject on this matter, pet discussions on this matter with my colleagues. I mean, sometimes we jokingly say that people tell us, go out there and shout at governments and what have you, but in their close circuited quarters, they tend to even look down some of the advocacy work that we do. I mean, making comments like they don't even know what they're about. They are not, they talk from A to Z, say everything from archaeology to zoology. We've heard all those demeaning commentary. And so I'm not surprised this is coming up at this juncture. And so overwhelmingly, I agree with that view that the middle class largely had sat on the bench and had not come to the party until they were directly affected. And I see it through clearly. I must also say that maybe this is a political point I need to make, and I suspect it to be true, which also means that the NDC itself must having endeared itself to the middle class properly, don't forget, when the NDC was in power, I mean, assuming the NDC was in power and all this was happening, you will definitely see the likes of the groups which some of us helped form, Occupy Ghana, would be on the street. I'm sure the roof would have come down tumbling by now. And I can and you see, so there's some truth in the fact that the middle class somehow disproportionately does not lend itself to should I say support the work of a particular party when they are in government. But that could also be the party's own doing, really. I mean, as I said, the NDC has not endeared itself to the middle class. But the point I'm making, and I agree with you, is that until the middle class was directly touched, yes, we didn't see this much activity, even though I'm significantly part of them. And some of us are doing the work because we think that it is good public policy to do, it's good public advocacy to do when it comes to the issues around debt restructuring. I mean, that's the only reason why we got ourselves involved in it, even though some of us are also equally impacted by the way. So the direct answer to that question is that yes, and I think this gives an opportunity to the middle class to be part of the course of nation building. They shouldn't just sit down and say, "Oh, politicians are all the same. They do all kinds of things," and then sit on the fence. Really. Yeah.
Yes. So thanks, Franklin. Let me bring in Martin to wrap up this segment. Martin, Sophia Akuffo, we were shocked to see her there. When I read first that she was at the finance ministry, I was shocked. I thought it was one of those until I saw from Citi credibly that indeed. So I couldn't dispute that. And then later on, we began hearing the voices and all of that. In fact, I mean, you should know this. Her valedictorian judgment was in your case.
Yes.
Martin Kpebu number 4 or 5? Is it number 4?
So that's number 4.
That's the 48-hour rule bail thing.
Yes.
And I was in court on that day.
Okay.
So you had the best laugh, or who laughs last laughs best, or how?
Yes.
You know her. Were you surprised to see her there? Were you surprised to hear some of the things she said?
Yeah, I should think that seeing her there, I was surprised. I knew that she's always had that public spirit, but I didn't know she could express it in this form. And it's good that she did it that way. I call it, she's broken a glass ceiling. Yeah, because we had made it look like, oh, once you've attained certain positions in government, so to speak, or in Ghana generally, then you were barred from coming to certain conversations. But what she's done, she's broken that glass ceiling, and it's good. She's changed the face of our democracy, because with a former CJ picketing, let's use the common word, demonstrating, that's super, 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 and God bless her for this. I call it the Yah Sanctuary returns. Yeah, Yah Sanctuary returns. We know the constants. The Catholic Bishops' Conference, the Christian Council, Pentecostal Council, those, yes, they've always been speaking, even before independence, all right? Yes, but the point is that we need more people to speak. Sam Jonah came and spoke, and then the attack dogs were sent after him. You see, since then, he hasn't spoken much. You see, the 98 MPs, 88, 10, 98 spoke, and then later, the party, MPP, descended upon them. They are struggling to come back. You see, yes, your party, the president hounded them into quiet. You see, so the point we are making is that,
Wait.
Yes, our democracy has been strengthened by Chief Justice Sophia Akuffo. Yes, she's changed the face of our democracy. What she's done is a shot in the arm of the struggle for all bondholders, individual bondholders, to be excluded. But she said, what did you use the money for? What did Ken Ofori-Atta and the president use the money for? What did they use the money for? That's the question. Meanwhile, in the meantime, Data Bank made hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis in commissions.
But Data Bank is a different company. It's a company on this. It's an artificial. I mean, Data Bank is not kind of
owned by who? Significantly owned by Ofori-Atta. I said here, no. Oh, Salam, let him ask. Devil's advocate, so that will answer. It's even good. Salam, I want you to repeat the question 10 times so that I can answer 100 times.
Data Bank is not kind of
good. Ken Ofori-Atta is a significant shareholder, and with his friends in there, and then another company owned by him. So Ken Ofori-Atta practically is the majority shareholder through the other company. Please, we will fight this anywhere. If he wants, we can go to court. We've not yet gone to court because we want the public to understand this story and to come on board first. So that by the time we are going to court, the whole nation will be on fire. Yeah. So that everybody will come and support. Because how can the president bring his cousin to come and brazenly make money for their family? When on 7 January 2017, Akuffo was taking the oath, after the oath, his speech, if you want to make money, go to the private sector. Sana, he was driving people away to the private sector so that the public sector will be for his family. Then they can make easier money, cheap money. But so today, as we speak, but through public, there's a big
sector.
No, but they came and made their money through public sector. The bonds, when we issue the Euro bonds, the primary dealers and all that they do, and the commission. So now they've made hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis sell on. So now Oforiatta and President Akufo-Addo are exceedingly rich, filthily rich at our expense. So there was an incentive to borrow. Even when the World Bank issued their notice, a 2019 report, and then they published it in February 2020, warning that hey, the way we're borrowing, there was a high risk of distress. I have the report here. It's just on the net. If you Google it, World Bank report, IMF World Bank, you see it. They warned. Then the NDC people took on. Oh, God bless Honorable Adongo. They started making noise. Oh, they are opposition. To be honest, I think the mistake is that we as Ghanaians, I think the shambolic performance of Akufo-Addo is what needed to give us a rude awakening. So a lot of us have now had our political awakening. Because to be honest with you, when Akufo-Addo was coming, I knew that Ghana was going to become heaven. Because I thought that because he's a lawyer, everything, and I will go to court. So you know how to earn 1 cedi here, 5 pesos there, 10 cedis there, and that's how you used to run your life in private sector. So when he was coming, I said, yes, this is the man. The whole of his life he's been in private sector. Of course, in Kufuor's era, he was a minister and the rest. But, I mean, he had lived and practiced at the bar for decades before coming into office. So I thought that automatically meant that he will perform excellently. No, we had forgotten that in Twi, I say, a pokura in Sutogu, the sea. Let me do transliteration. That even the sea, you see every time rain falls, some falls into the sea.
Even though the sea is already water.
So by the time they were coming, they just say, oh, wait, Nisika, he will not touch 1 peso. And I bought into it. That was the naive thinking. That's what I'm saying. Now I've had my political awakening. And the same for lots of us Ghanaians. So the main thing is that, look, President Akufo-Addo and Oforiatta have lost touch. They are not the right people to continue to lead us. That's why we'll keep repeating that. These guys in the economic management team, they must just resign on block and go. President Akufo-Addo, Vice President Bawumia, Oforiatta, and the rest of the economic management team, just go. Because you can't lead us into this deep crater. Now you have become richer. You've become filthily rich, and Ghanaians are down in this deep hole and dying. And Oforiatta had the temerity to ask them that what are they sacrificing? I wish I was there. I would have just said, Mr. Oforiatta, we are asking the pensioners to sacrifice. Please return the money data bank made from all these bonds. Return, sorry?
You've had meetings with him where you were able to
But that wasn't the subject of the meeting.
Yes, I've had meetings, yes.
But that wasn't the subject of the meeting. Oh.
And now, yes, I get it. Because he said we should come up with a technical report. You see, that time, if he had asked that question at the meeting, I would have told him. And he knows. So at the meetings, he wasn't discussing the money data bank made. But me, how would I have run away when that's even what I want to discuss? But the meeting was about the technical report. He said we should go into a technical committee and show what we think government should cut. Because Mr. Thompson, as you sit, your surname is Thompson.
Yes,
so Mr. Thompson, as you sit here, now the whole of our society has accepted that, you see, apart from debt restructuring, fiscal adjustment is another way of dealing with the problem. Yeah. So why won't government cut? Last year, Honorable Ablakwa has shown that presidency alone, they spent about 15 million Ghana on car ties. Ties alone, 15 million Ghana. How? Car ties alone, 15 million Ghana.
And for discussion so that I can respond to it.
No, so what I'm saying is that so government hasn't shown enough. So then what is Selim say that what's my take on Chief Justice Sophia Akuffo this? I'm saying yes, she's done marvelous, and as part of it, she came to give us a shot in the arm because we've presented a technical committee report to the finance minister. And do you know what he said? He said, we have done very well. This is a document we should all commit to. In that document, we've shown how government can cut, and we'll save about 83 billion. 83 billion. Seller, I'm sure you've seen the report, the technical committee report.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I've seen it.
Oh, it's
No,
here.
I've seen it. It's all over the place. I can send you a copy.
Oforiatta didn't say it's a bad report. If he had, we could have gone back and looked at. Oh, why not? Nobody knows it all.
But the things you spoke about in that report, have you so far seen any move? Franklin says he hasn't.
Yes.
Have you seen the minister move or the government move to deal with any of them? Of course, the property taxes bit, we will see some work ongoing.
Yes.
Maybe some work was already ongoing.
Perfect. Yes.
But apart from that, have you seen anything else?
So that's the main one. The other one is lip service, sloganeering, that they are cutting down on V8. I don't know who is monitoring. Maybe CSOs, we should all contribute, form one CSO to be monitoring. So there should be somebody stationed at each ministry and taking records as they come in and go.
Citi can do that best.
Okay.
They used to have those
that was for indiscipline. Maybe, I don't know. But
you can do
Yeah,
that.
so
we'll be chasing.
monitor.
We'll be chasing
you can monitor
we'll be
to see
chasing the
those who are
people.
using
No,
the
They'll tell you they are going to Tamale.
No, those
or they
are
are going to
official
Asamankesi.
You are
You
right.
can't know where they are going.
No, during the midweek, you can do that.
No, but if
random.
you see them at
Just
Amasaman, they'll say no, they are going to
not
Kumasi.
Amasaman, in town.
No, if you see them in
the
town, they say they are just leaving their office
Mr. Thompson
and heading
is making
towards
a point. He
heading
said
towards
that-
Cape Coast.
he said he's going
You will know when people are lying. And
So
when you
it was
have
quite a
that
nebulous.
report,
It was quite a nebulous promise or pledge. I mean, without telling us how it was going to be monitored. And I know a lot of people are thinking about how that will be monitored. If you saw me at the ministry, maybe driving to my house, I could tell you, no, I'm attending a meeting at Peduasi, or I'm attending a meeting in Koforidia. That is out of Accra, and I can drive my vehicle per the regulation.
Let me give you an example. You can take your camera today to one ministry
And follow the minister.
Take pictures, or you can take a video of all the V8 with its numbers and everything there. Go the next day, do the same thing. It's a continuum.
I see. We'll see.
Okay, maybe we should
come
be
to
thinking, then we'll ask him, should we
It's a
find a way that he will say he's going to Peduasi, so then we'll have somebody in Peduasi
But
waiting.
that's a lot of work.
No, we can. Then we use phones.
if
so,
you bring
minister,
every
which
day
town
3
are you
times.
going to? He gives you. Then we call somebody in that town. Please wait the whole day. Where? Which meeting are you at?
And you have to stop him on the way.
Yes.
To ask him that question.
Yes. So when
but whether
he's
you can
exiting-
stop him on the way is another matter.
Yeah, so we should
Next
agree.
day.
Government should agree. We'll write a letter to the Ministry of Finance or whoever is to coordinate it, that they should give us that access. This is the person at this ministry. So when the car is moving at the gate, he asks, so minister, where are you going? Then we take the details, everything. Then we give it to the person there. If he arrives, we will know. If he doesn't, we can do something. Because look, it's our manual, Mr. Thompson. All of us are, and I voted for President Akufo-Addo. I've never voted for Mahama. And so I have every right to be very angry. And this is not the end. Look, we'll fight this thing, sir. Even if it's death, look, Selim, we can die.
In fact,
look, we
Martin,
can sit here. This thing can fall down and I'll die. I don't care. We'll fight this thing with our blood.
let Martin
We will
finish.
fight this thing to death if they don't change. Because what nonsense? You come and lie. We vote for
Martin, you are using strong words.
No, we have to.
You said you fight with the
We are all
DDEP.
working
Yes.
The
together.
DDEP.
Let us
Yes.
know-
But the DDEP.
No, but that is the anger. It's because we are not showing enough anger. You see, you are deceiving
It's not
us
about
to be
anger.
very gentle.
No.
Then they
How
will
can I
gun
deceive
fool.
you?
Do you know that? Look, Selim,
I mean,
the
it as
thinking
well,
is that the thinking is that they say, "Ehura ebejo." That's always the thinking. You think they don't know? They have the psyche of the Ghanaians. So Ghanaians, just give them 2 weeks. They talk about- No, we are not. This one, we'll fight this thing.
That's the DDEP.
Everything and the general economic mismanagement. It's the
But
general
have
economic
you-
mismanagement
That
that we
brought
didn't
us here.
fight. That brought us here. It's
But
that
you
thing
see,
that
have
we
you
didn't
looked at the
fight.
generality that
It's that thing that we
by
didn't
March
All right.
we should
So
have a
this is
deal.
the big issue. This is the big issue.
Mr. Thompson,
On
so the answer is that let's
Citi
cut down.
FM.
Look,
we
all
are
the
also-
professors,
Martin,
Professor
let-
IET
yeah,
University of
Martin,
Ghana,
let me do
Professor
my-
Bob. Oh,
Martin, let me do my-
one sentence.
Yes,
Oh,
okay,
one
so
sentence.
quickly,
I
all
said
right.
all the consummate professors, Professor IET University of Ghana, Professor Bob King, Lord Mensah, Professor Sibe Ebua, all of them say cut, fiscal adjustment.
Yeah,
cut.
so we are getting to the fiscal adjustment. This is the big issue on 97.3 Citi FM. We are looking at former CJ Sophia Akuffo's participation in the protest yesterday at the finance ministry. You know, pensioner bondholders want to be exempted from it. It's seen a lot of amendments along the way. Finance minister says the deal on the table for them now is better than it started, and indeed that is true. So we've been looking at that, looking at what the ordinary Ghanaian or Ghanaians generally and the pensioners, everybody is contributing to the struggle or contributing to the difficulty we are having. The question is, what has government itself contributed? My guests are Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, Godwin Edugin Tabaklo, private legal practitioner, member of the NDC. Martin Kpebu, you just heard, private legal practitioner as well. Alfred Thompson, former Deputy MD, National Investment Bank, and a member of the MPP. Richard Ahiagba, Director of Communications of the MPP, also had his time. You can join a discussion on 020-444-7033, and I'll be glad to share your views with the rest of the world. Now, we know what the individuals or I'll come to you. No, I'll come to you.
Quick rebuttal.
No, I'll come to you. We now know what everybody else has been asked to contribute. Finance Minister said we should burden share. But what is not really clear is what government itself is giving. Of course, we've heard some 30% pay cuts. I don't know who is monitoring that. We've not been given any report. At least I know in the John Mahama era, there was some 10% cut also, and that was put in a kitty to build chip compounds. So at least there's something to show or see for that. Maybe Richard and Alfred will tell us what the 30% cut is being used for. I mean, we don't know. Or whether they cut them, put it back into the consolidated fund. We don't know, but we will need some education on that. V8 matters. We were just talking about the V8. They say these are the sacrifices they are making. This week, we saw a reshuffle of a sort. So I want to, get into that now. The reshuffle, the net effect of it is that government is being somewhat expanded. We've seen a Minister of State position now being created. Of course, the person occupying that position, fantastic gentleman, served his country well, Obiama. But the issue is, why must that position be created when we are in the middle of a crisis? Many have said that it appears government is not listening or is not woken up to smell the coffee, as it were. I start off with you, Eduji. Your take on the reshuffle. Maybe government thinks that we are in the midst of a difficulty. It needs more hands. It needs more competent hands. So, Adam have to be sent to the finance ministry to help Ken. Local government issues, very important. So, very experienced Obiama will have to move to Minister of State. Energy issues, etc. We have to see Herbert Krapper move there. A whole lot. Government is being refreshed. And so, perhaps we will have to see more effort and then more activity, because we have fresh legs joining the game now. Your take?
You see, the Akuffo government, for me, is becoming a symptom of wastage without more. Why am I making this position? If you have a situation where the president decides to move Obiama to a minister of state, right, for the local government ministry, what is it that Obiama is coming to do? That one, a chief director or a director at the Ministry of Local Government cannot do. Two, as I speak to you, my MPP friend, Miracle Abuaji, works at the office of the president as a presidential staffer in charge of local government administration. Then you have the office of local government administrator, or whatever they call it, Nana Ato Ata. So within the local government architecture, look at the number of people there. Akuffo is confused. The whole country is on autopilot. What exactly is the direction of Akuffo?
To restore macroeconomic stability.
Malawi, the president of Malawi, Lazarus,
Shakuri or something,
just moved his ministers from 35 to 25. That is what you do during austerity.
And Cote d'Ivoire, 41 to 32.
But this one, the one we have massaged his ego.
Why are you pointing to me?
Look, what we should be careful is that we all do not become accomplices in what Akuffo is doing to Ghana's democracy. The man has effectively destroyed our democracy, and we are watching him.
That's true.
And let me tell you something. People are beginning to lose interest in this democracy because of Akuffo. Look, I recall my vivid interaction with my leader senior here in Human Rights Court before 2020 election. I had met him. I said, look, Sina, I beg you, this time around, I need you on board for the Mahama project in 2020. He said, look, Akuffo-Addo should be given a second term.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. And the last day, Shalom, I don't know if you hosted it. I said we should give him a second
and I was in your office too. We had this discussion before.
Yes, yes. I thought he would.
So sometimes when I hear MPP people say certain things about Martin, I say, you people, you don't know the man you are dealing. This is a man who in 2016 voted for Akuffo-Addo. In 2020, in Human Rights Court, in 2020, I remember myself and Senior, in Human Rights Court, I had approached him before the judge came. That's it, I beg you. As for this one, I need you on board. He said, look, he said, Eduji, you guys have done your 8 years. So allow Akuffo-Addo to do his 8 years.
I didn't know he was going to be this bad.
This is Martin.
And this best. Salo, you can ask them. The last show before the election.
I remember. So the point ought to be made that people are just disillusioned by the hype in the person of Akuffo-Addo. Look, let nobody mistake the harm that Akuffo-Addo had caused this democracy.
Yes.
And you see, let me tell you, it is because today Ghanaians have come to the point that, after 2 years, you be If not, if this thing had happened in the 70s or any other time, they would have been troubled today. Because even the Buzia administration that had Akuffo-Addo's father as ceremonial president, Ken Ofori-Atta's father as the finance minister, did not take this economy to this West state before Achampo removed them. The Nkrumah administration did not run this country down. What Akuffo-Addo had done before Kutuka and others removed him. The point ought to be made clear that the harm that Akuffo-Addo and his family members have inflicted on this country is so terrible, it will take generations to recover. The nature of the damage to the economy will require no less than 20 years to fix. Look, do you know that by reason of even this domestic debt exchange program, we need 10 years to even bring the economy back to normalcy. We need 15 years to restore this economy to a debt to GDP ratio of 57%. To ensure a certain equilibrium. And then you have a situation where people want us to massage the egos of Akuffo-Addo. How in God's name do you expect this? And look at this ministerial works. Look, and I've always said that one of the areas that we need to critically evaluate. When John Mahama was the president of this republic, we had a director of Forestry Commission. And let me give you where the wastage is coming from. We had a director of Forestry Commission. He never had deputies. Today, Akuffo-Addo has a director Forestry Commission with 3 deputies. Under John Mahama, we had a director of SNITs and a deputy. Today, 4 deputies. National Petroleum Authority, NPA. There was executive director. Today, almost 2 deputies. So almost all the state agencies, they have created other bureaucracies, and each one of them is paid. So when they tell you how much government of Ghana is spending, where the wastage is coming from, is the duplication of roles. Come to think of it, Ministry of Energy has a minister, has a deputy already. Then you've taken my learned friend Krampa back to that ministry as a deputy minister. To do what exactly? You have a minister of finance with almost 3 deputies. Abna, my learned friend John, 2. Then now you have elevated Aminanta to Minister of State at the Finance Ministry.
He's replacing Eduboy.
It matters not. What it means is that the Eduboy role was superfluous.
That's why, if it were, they wouldn't replace him.
Why was it superfluous?
If it were, they wouldn't replace him.
Let's look at a certain comparative analysis. Under John Mahama had Jifa as transport minister without more. And she handled railway aviation, all of them under one ministry. Ably assisted by who? Joyce Bauer. With this leadership, Terminal 3, the Kojo Kro Railway Project, they successfully negotiated with Setekwe, the Akosombo Tema Impakadam Railway Project. A woman.
But there was bus branding as well.
No, but bus branding granted.
But it happened under watch.
Yes, but even that one is about productivity. I'm looking at the relative. Please.
Your voice went down.
No, I'm not. But the critical issue, Selo, is that whether or not there was bus branding or not, in terms of productivity, a woman plus another woman heading a ministry were able to achieve all these things. Now today, Akufo-Addo has a separate minister for railway line. Today he has become a scrap dealer. He sells scrap. Nothing.
Sells scrap.
Yes.
He's overseeing the Pakadam project.
Oh, okay. So he is a supervisor, foreman.
No, but that's his work. He's dealing with the Pakadam project and a few others.
Okay. So let's take that. But I'm saying that all this thing was done under the leadership of a woman and another woman. All this, because there are directors within the ministry who can go and check and come. Today, you have a separate minister for transport. You have a separate minister for railway. And then you have a separate minister, roads and highways. If you put what has been...
But there was roads and highways also.
I do not disagree. But what I'm saying, what has been the combined productivity of the transport minister plus the railway minister, if you put them together? Don't tell me that four-man job. No. So if you are looking at the relative productivity of the people Akufo-Addo has assembled, there was no basis for this, whether replacement, fill in the gap, or reshuffle or not. It is a complete waste. Now, catch this. You move Obiamwa from deputy minister, elevates him. It means that you are now going to pay him, the minister, a ministerial salary. Oh, yes. Would he become minister of state and take deputy minister salary? Alfred, would you do that?
Not really.
But I'm saying that it is not the case.
30% pay cut. So most of them have dropped their
but of course, so 30% is one level, but he goes up.
But he goes up. It's a notch higher.
No, he's agreed. He goes up.
Most of them have now come to the MP's salary.
Yeah, but he goes up from where he was before.
They take the MP salary now. Most of them.
But he's a minister now, so he goes up a bit. Yes.
So the critical thing that I want us to look at is that if you look at all the musical chairs that Akufo-Addo is playing around us, first of all, there's a certain demonstration of lack of respect. Because you see, at the time when you are asking pensioners, bondholders, that tighten your belt. I mean, one of the most disrespectful comments I've heard is the issue of Boamenamembwao. Seriously, you are the most resource administration. In 8 years, NDC had only 248 billion.
No, but helping me could mean a lot of things.
What
it
else?
could mean cooperating with me.
I'll explain it to him. He doesn't understand. I'll explain it to you. It's not about their money.
Yes, okay, go ahead. You see, I want to take a break.
Yes,
go ahead.
If people sign on to the DDE, effectively they are ceding their money to you. They are ceding their life savings to you. So it is not about cooperation, it's about money.
It's about cooperation.
At the core of it, when all is said and done, is people's life savings. Now, if you are telling me, as a father, you go to your children and say, oh, kids, things are difficult. I want us all to make concessions. Every morning, the kids see their father prepared fried egg and he's eating.
Chibom.
Chibom. In Chimfua.
Exactly.
He's eating.
That's what it is. Accountability.
Yes.
I really don't
And
understand.
then, so what will be his moral authority to urge his children to come along with him? At the time when people are crying, that things are difficult, as a leader, what you do is that you come out and say, you know what, even with these numbers, I think Dambotre alone can do the work of the local government minister. So I'm maintaining him. Obi, maintain your job as an MP. so and so person, do this. Then let Ghanaians, even for the optics, see that you are making genuine efforts at reducing your expenditure. By reason of what the president has done, the expenditure, government expenditure will go up. People, Obiama is now going to receive additional fuel. The new people that have come, additional fuel, that is a charge on the consolidated fund. So when you put this whole reshuffle together, for me, it's very disrespectful, further insults to Ghanaians, and it does not make sense. To conclude, I listened to my senior, my brother Richard Ahiagba, makes the point about, NDC, there are no policy programs, and look, you will recall that in 2015, just when we had a crucial election upcoming, 2015 December, John Dramani Mahama presented to Parliament the Energy Sector Levies Act. The NPP campaigned against it. It was not a palatable decision to take. But today, by reason of ESLA has given this administration close to 16 billion Ghana cedis. At that time, it was something that was going to affect us in the election. But we took that decision. Today, it has become the lifeblood of this administration. Do you know, as part of this debt exchange program, and let me conclude on this, this government deceived investors. That you know what? We have an instrument called ESLA. It gives us this amount of money annually. And so we are going to what? Collateralize the receivables. So come and buy our ESLA bonds. Then investors, knowing that there is this income flow for them, agreed and gave their money to Akufo-Addo and Ken Uforiata and Bawumia. Only for them to now turn around and say, the money and the representation that you gave us, we can no longer build on it. But do you know the curious thing, Selom? Has ESLA been repealed?
No.
Has the Dachi bonds that they are using 65% get fund to pay, has it been repealed? So where is your moral authority? Even isolate the bond holders and say, okay, those with ESLA bonds, those with Dachi bonds, will continue paying you. You are not demonstrating anything. There is no income stream of this administration that has been cut. You are still taking VAT. In fact, you have increased it. You are taking ESLA. You have added more persuades to it. You are taking more get fund. In all of this, you are still telling people that they should sign on to domestic debt exchange program.
Very well. They say that is to save the economy.
Fraudulent.
They say
one promise.
No, they say that is to save the economy. This is the big issue. My name is Selom Adonu. A number of your messages have been pouring in. Let me just quickly do a few of them, or maybe I go for a quick break, come back, do some of them, keep sending them in, and after the break, I will go to Richard Ahiagba. I want to hear from him on the reshuffle and what that means for the country for the next 2 years before we go for election. And I also found out from him if this is all we are expecting, because there was the big talk of a certain reshuffle, and we're expecting some big names, not replacements of people who have resigned. Are we to still expect something more, or this is just what it is? Of course, we have established that the president does not like to change personnel. Maybe good, maybe not. But we'll go into all of that. This is the big issue. We'll be right back.
Ever mobile phones, television, air condition, speakers, computers, laptops. When him say Franco Trading Enterprise, and that's why number one. Say open phones, papa pan and one kade. And brought that from so-called phones bit to say Nokia, Samsung, iPhone, Infinix, Huawei, STG, Alcatel, and the phone beer open via Simubia. A Franco Trading Enterprise. Boraya shop beer and we're gonna have fun beer. Nekopa dear. I so, Mamma Posamutunu do so, which have been bringing a do no. A Franco Trading Enterprise. Franco Trading Enterprise. A full papa and the accessories papa. I hear you.
Roses are red, violets are blue, Valentine's is approaching, so get ready for Shades of Love 2. Shades of Love with Aquaba 2023 is here again. Get your shade of red or pink outfits ready. Hit up your special one and plan a night of unbelievable fun and a whole lot of love. Listening to Aquaba's back-to-back hits. Shades of Love 2023 with Aquaba will be the night to remember for all those who love love, and happening in both Accra and in Kumasi. Date on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February 2023 at La Palm Royal Beach Hotel in Accra, and on the 18th of February at Ike's Cafe and Grill in Kumasi. Tickets are going for VVIP for 400 Ghana cedis, VIP for 300 Ghana cedis, standard tickets for 200 Ghana cedis, and for table bookings and cabanas and all enquiries, kindly call 027-227-7757. Get your tickets at
Citi TV and Citi FM, Joy FM, YFM, Accra Mall, Eliza's Restaurant, Jolie Junction, Metro TV, La Palm Royal Beach Hotel.
Shades of Love with Aquaba 2023. It will be awesome. Media partners.
Powered by
Think Media Expert.
Hello, you're welcome back to The Big Issue. My name is Selom Adonu. We are live on 97.3 Citi FM, and obviously we are on Citi TV. We're also on Citi Tube. Go to YouTube, look for Citi Tube. You can join the conversation, and you can always go back anytime to watch it from Citi Tube. Join the conversation with your via WhatsApp on 020-444-7033. My guest this morning, Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa, Gordon Eduji Tamaklo, private legal practitioner, member of the NDC, Martin Pebu, private legal practitioner, Alfred Thompson, former Deputy MD, National Investment Bank and MPP, Richard Ahiagba, Director of Communications of the MPP. A few of your messages that have come in here. This one says, when Martin Pebu said the solution to the problem is for the president to resign, we all saw him to be joking. But until that happens, the hole that they dug under Ghana cannot be filled in 25 years. Gariba sent that in from Achimota. This one says, this is what these people are planning. And think, okay, no, it's a long message you sent. Long message. Has the former CJ, this one is Ali Dwayne, has the former CJ accounted for the COVID funds money? They should not play with our minds. We are serious here, and she is part of the problem. That's Ali Dwayne. Ghana democracy is default. All must rise. This is from MJ. It says, democracy that turns heads against one another, terrorize the stability, peace, and security, exploit the people, corrupt the system in a vicious cycle of corruption free for all. Without recourse to application of law is a default and probably criminal than what it ought to be. I'm not quite clear. But more of Hamdan from Nuhini says, the only mistake Ghanaians made was voting for the MPP. 2024 is the right forum for Ghanaians to send that family and friends away. The MPP never admit their inefficiencies. Before one can solve a problem, you need to first admit that there is a problem. But Anado and family members will never take responsibility. They are always right. They defend everything, even the devil. That's why Honorable Mujib is... okay, no, I don't know what this is. All right. Good morning, Selo. I'm surprised that the simple questions you asked of Thompson and Richard has led them to talk so much without addressing the questions. Do they not have answers to your question? Maybe you should have brought them reminders. Okay. From Kofi in Tema, Franklin, I don't think the NDC must endear itself to the middle class to get them speaking about the ills like they did under the NDC. Otherwise, what agenda is it? From Kofi in Tema. All right. Richard, yes, your government did some reshuffle. I don't know how you will call it, whether it's a reshuffle or it's a replacement. I don't know what it is. But the concern is that in this era where everybody is talking about expenditure cuts, it appears the government doesn't even see it. It did not even leave the numbers or leave it as it was. it's increased the expenditure. There's a Minister of State now. Do you think this is the time for the creation of new roles, or this is a time for us to be cutting down on the numbers, like what we've seen in Cote d'Ivoire and is it Malawi, where we've seen a drastic reduction in the size of the numbers of ministers? And that goes with every other thing, the SOEs, deputy CEO or MD positions and all of that. That is quite a huge burden on the state. We were expecting that a reshuffle will bring some freshness. I don't know if you call this freshness. Some freshness, some fresh legs to move the economy to where we want it to be. Your thoughts on this, as you proceed?
Well, Shalom, thank you. And I listened to Edward. He set his own questions. And so...
But you have just 5 minutes, so you kindly manage your time, yes.
No problem. As usual, I'll stay within time for you. The question of reshuffle is one that is preoccupied Ghanaians largely. And so it's not surprising that it's generated a lot of interest. To me, particularly, I've always maintained the position that the president, once elected, has a prerogative to put a team together that can deliver the mandate that the MPP promised that will deliver. And so, to that extent, I would defer to the president's discretion on the matter. Otherwise, would be attempting to tie his hands behind his back and then expect him to deliver. So he has a prerogative to do that. And so what we have seen come up, I think, is restructure to the extent that he wants to put the pieces together to deliver. I think Edward mentioned about the Honorable Obiama's elevation or moving from deputy to become Minister of State. There is nothing very consequential in terms of income or revenue that is going to earn or change in the condition of work. What I think perhaps that will be trying to do, the local government and rural development is a very critical piece in the efforts to decentralize and make democracy very personal and at the doorstep of our people. And that's one thing that has been elusive. We haven't been able to efficiently or properly decentralize, if you like. And that is one thing that we must do if, as a country, we want to really bring governance closer to the people. So I think that there must be a plot in the president's mind. And he's one who, even in his history as president, has been looking to deepen the process of bringing governance to the people. On one hand, the creation of the 6 additional regions, that is to break it down and make sure governance is closer, and also his spirited effort to want to democratize the local governance system by completing the process by having MMDCs voted for. And so you see a plot in his mind to say that Ghanaians must have larger say in our democracy. So this may be an attempt to have somebody at a Jubilee House or a Minister of State, perhaps detailed, to try to see how do we realize that. And I can tell you this to some extent, maybe as a matter of some conversation that I'm privy to, the president is interested in looking at how is it that we can achieve what we failed to achieve the last time of trying to have MMDCs be voted for. That conversation is one thing that is committed to, and I don't know that this may be an occasion for him to try and explore the avenue for that to be done, which would be beneficial to Ghana largely. So I see some value in that. And also the local government is also a very critical place. Right now, they are doing some very important work in respect of the property tax. They have done very, very extensive work in trying to streamline how is it that the assemblies are able to generate some revenue to allow for the governance process at the assemblies to be resourced in ways that would allow for development at the local level. So you may want to imagine also that there is some impetus to things that the elevation of Obi Amwa, who has extensive knowledge and experience in that space, to be able to give it some drive to make sure that we realize the objectives that he has set for that sector of the economy. So truly, I think that the question of reshuffle in terms of the pieces that has been put together, I will urge people to see it from that standpoint, that you don't want to tie a president's hands behind him. While we may be interested in seeing a certain movement, if those movements we want to see, if they happen and that affect outcome in a certain way drastically, we'll be the same persons who will say that, or why has it not generated this? Why have we not seen that? And they also raised the question about the 30% reduction in salaries of appointees. I would want to agree with you to say that the finance ministry needs to do us some big favor. I've asked these questions in certain situations to say that just tabulate that. Far from, I think your concern was what is being useful. But I'm saying that far from, what is being useful, just give us the global sum. What has been realized a year into it, a year after. Give us the total number. Now, that is going to require some effort and some, calculation that can be done. I think Controller Accountant General Department can also take that up and just let us know the reductions you have made over the period. How much is it? Then they ask whether it is used to build roads and all hospitals and the rest of what we can see it. I am interested in that. I've asked that question in close quarters. And I think that since you have said it, we can ask that. It's not as if they can't do it. It's not as if they are not doing a deduction. Before I resigned from the office of the president as deputy director of research, my salary was docked by 30%. And so I know it's being done. All we need is that they should tabulate and let us know. That, for me, I can say to a large extent the finance ministry is not really preoccupied by it because they feel that is not the meat of the matter. But for a political person or for a party political person, for me, it's important. They are doing the hard work of trying to move the economy and all that. But these issues are key, so that I could report here that for the past 1 year and then a couple of months into it, in 2023, this is how much government, through its creative efforts to cut government expenditure, we've realized by the reduction in the salaries of appointees. So I think that it's important for the political side. It's not particularly consequential in terms of the policy, administrative side, which is why the finance minister has not done it. But I would appeal to them on this platform that do it, because it makes for good political conversation to say that we have realized this much so far, so people can see how much it is we have realized. And that adds up to all the effort government is putting in to try to demonstrate serious consolidation as far as government expenditure.
Very well. Yes. The general thinking really is that when we had talk about reshuffle, the thinking was that government was going to reflect the situation on the ground, asking us to burden share. Government also has to shed off a bit of its weight. Government has become quite obese. Shed off its weight a bit so we all know that we are in this together. Government doesn't appear to be doing that. Already in the budget of 2023, we know government is planning to spend way above what it did last year. Huge deficit will result. In this our current economic difficulty, we will have to finance or fund that deficit. It doesn't appear government is seeing the reality on the ground, which is unfortunate. With this reshuffle, people expected that we will see a reflection of what is on the ground. Were you underwhelmed by the nature of this reshuffle, or it was just business as usual for you?
Well, in fact, to be honest with you, I am impressed with the individuals that have been brought forth to continue to deliver for Ghana. And then the question of being underwhelmed doesn't arise, because the opportunity to reshuffle is a process, and it doesn't mean the president cannot reshuffle tomorrow or cannot reshuffle the day after tomorrow. So it's not a destination we have arrived at. and so much that the president cannot reshuffle again. He's done what needs to be done now. He's looking, and I think that president has given indication to this several times over, to say that he is constantly monitoring to see that if things are not going the way he wants them to go, because as the vision bearer, he will make the changes that are necessary to make. But so on that score, I just will appeal that with all respect, let's grant the president the opportunity to be able to make the decisions in terms of how he wants to play us forward. Because if we don't do that, we will not take responsibility equally in terms of whether or not he realizes the objectives that he and his party is set to achieve for Ghana. So on that score, I want to say that let's grant it. You know, in the first term, we saw the number of ministers has been cut down tremendously. He is looking at the best way to play Ghana forward. So on that score, I think that we should proceed cautiously.
Very well. But
now,
will you say
that?
Will you say that this current one? Will you say that the reshuffle, as we've seen it, imposes further expenditure or further financial burden on government? Does it increase the size of government budget, in your view?
You see, no, I don't think so. But I don't have the specifics for you. But if you look at the instance of Herbert Crapper being moved to energy, is a net, it's a zero.
It's horizontal,
effect,
yes.
Right, in terms of it doesn't bring anything. The movement of perhaps Honorable Anta to
Minister of
Finance,
State. Yes.
Minister of State. I don't know, unless we look at the numbers. I don't think
that imposes a slight burden. Yes, and it's not just in the take home.
I wouldn't think so.
It's not just in the take home. It's not just in the take home. Now he's treated as a minister. His allowances and the requirements of his office, the public purse will have to suffer that. Again, Obi Amwa moved from deputy minister to minister of state. I mean, the privileges of his office must be enhanced now. The public will bear that cost. So essentially, it has brought debt or some.
I mean, we're making very generous assumptions here, which I think we should stay away from. We have capacity. You have capacity to get the numbers, and we can.
I do have the numbers. Of course, CDD has done some work on that. CDD has told us how much a minister of state earns. So, for example, minister of state who is an MP earns 30,644. Okay. Cedis. And then a minister of state, it goes on and on. Ministers who are MPs, ministers who are not MPs, minister of state who is an MP who is not. We know what they earn. And so we know what the difference may be. The difference may not be very huge as in the take home, but there are other requirements or privileges of his office. I don't know what they drive, but for example, if a deputy minister drove a certain kind of car, a minister of state obviously will have an upgrade. And who bears the cost of that upgrade? That is the conversation. So we have the figures, we have the capacity, that's what we're doing.
So I mean, it becomes a very exaggerated conversation, looking at the magnitude if you are not putting the numbers to it. If you put the numbers to it, you realize that if there is any change at all, these are changes that these individuals can decide to say, look, we are not standing up for it. I'll tell you something, right? There are people. When I was at the office of the president, I was supposed to have this benefit, that benefit, this benefit.
But you didn't
get any of it.
Okay.
At all.
Very well. Maybe you didn't push for it. Maybe you didn't push for it.
No. Listen, it's not about being pushed for it. I'll use myself as an example, but I want to tell you that is the situation. I can name people for you right now who are supposed to be government apartments, and they are not, and they're supposed to get rent allowance, they are not getting it. People are not getting all these benefits.
Very well. Very well.
No, 1 second. Let me just conclude for you. Maybe one of these days we should have a general conversation. The sacrifices that we're talking about, people are making it. It's just because people were not speaking about it, people don't hear about it. But all of these benefits you are talking about. Last time I was listening to the Minister for Employment and Labor Relations. He was talking about him being on his MP salary. So all of these individuals are making significant, concessions that is going to help the public purse. I think that we should speak about it. But the key thing I don't want us to confuse in the matter is that the prerogative of a president with a burden to deliver a certain goods to the people must have the team, must have the leeway to be able to make the appointments and the team that he needs to be able to help deliver that.
Very well.
That, if we grant that,
Very
then
well.
we can have a conversation about what is going into it, which I can tell you is not much. If we
Very
do
well.
the
Great,
numbers.
great.
But ultimately, let's grant him the opportunity to make that.
Yes, Franklin Kujo, you saw the names. Your colleague in civil society, Andam, who actually founded ASEP. Very useful CSO and all of that. So you should be happy to have a representation at that level in government. Of course, he's always been there, but he's been moved up a bit. You should be happy for him. Beyond being happy for him, what do you think of the reshuffle or I don't know what to call it really, of what we have just seen the president do? Was this what we expected? Was it underwhelming? Or, we've given up, so that's what it is. We can't be bothered.
Oh, Anta obviously is a professional, and he's executed his duties wherever he's found himself. That said, I don't think this is a reshuffle, of course. In the sense that Ghanaians are expecting. It is a reshuffle in the sense that people are being replaced, but within the current political milieu, I'm not too sure that is what people were expecting. I think my good friend Richard just signed off by saying that the government needs to be able to execute its mandate if a certain number of skilled personnel or as experts or whatever, personnel. But I think the question we should be asking ourselves, and I think going forward, what we should be having, we should have some sort of a charter with politicians in government, is that we need to give you a charter that says if you're able to deliver certain kind of growth, real growth, maybe 10% or 7% or 9%, we require a certain skill set and the number of these skills that must be, adapted in order to get us that growth. Unfortunately, we should not be able to have that conversation. I call it the optimal growth charter, where you're asking people essentially to pay a tax in order to deliver a certain amount of development, a certain level of development. I think it's important that we start asking questions as to what clear, probably we set a bar, some sort of a bar, as to what numbers you could actually bring to government. Maybe that's even the better option, rather than ask you to give us a certain number of skill set that you may require in order to deliver a certain kind of growth. But that could be counterintuitive. So I think we should set a bar. And I suspect the Constitution quietly seems to have even set a bar already, just that because the presidency has been given these expansive powers, it decides what to do with and then what not to do. So coming back to the question, really, I didn't think the president served the country well. And it seems to be living in some sort of a bubble, really, because everybody seems to be speaking about this whole concept of reduction in government, the size of government, and it's not just personnel, by the way. I think we also need to be quite conscious of the fact that beyond the personnel that we need to take a look at, we also need to look at the programs, projects, and policies that have been rolled out as well. I keep saying that free SHS, even though we still say that we should have some sort of co-sharing arrangements for parents, I don't even think that is the single most important factor when it comes to finances that are being bled in one way or the other. 2 billion for free SHS is okay, but if you tend to look at the other expenditure plans and programs that we have, you could be bleeding, and they are just bleeding the state. I keep saying that the Ministry of Special Development Initiative was one of the biggest, disservice the Akuffo government did to this country by creating the ministry, superintending it at the Office of Government Machinery under the presidency, has this penchant for spending on projects that were significantly nebulous was quite our undoing. And even though the ministry does not exist in name, it's members, really, are all listed under the Office of Government Machinery, still drawing salaries in one form or the other, or supervising certain projects. So I think we should be looking at the root and stem approach to this whole exercise of downsizing government. And like I said, we should have a charter going forward that you need to be able to show us what you can execute with a set number of skills that the country would have imposed upon you.
Very well.
But with even that, it's important for politicians to be able to tell us that, look, we'll run this country like corporates run, because you're using people's money to develop the country anyway.
I see. Great one. Martin, was it clear the direction the president wants to take the country with this new appointments he made into various ministerial positions? What's your reading of where he wants to take the country from here? Richard alluded to a certain focus maybe being given the local government ministry by the sheer elevation of Obiama to a Minister of State status. What's your thinking? You think it's clear where the president is going with these appointments?
Not at all. Today is a bad day. Not at all. It's vague. It's just so vague. The president will not engage with us. Civil society, he says what? We are self-appointed wise men and all that. So he just says that's the president typically. He's in charge. He's large and in charge. That's it. Everyone else doesn't matter. Tintin, like we say in tree. Or Mampam, he hasn't heard. The Mampam doesn't listen.
The Bible is Nebuchadnezzar.
The Bible Nebuchadnezzar. Actually, President Kufuor, sometimes I sit back and I'm like, wow. So our only sin is to have voted for him and to be treated like, you heard the point Eduji made. He's destroyed our democracy. What the president has done, when the Eduji was speaking, he was just speaking my mind. Kufuor is run our democracy down. So I just pray that the next president doesn't look at what he's done. It's just one man. Your ministers come. You see the MPs in parliament, led ably by Apia Kubi, Honorable Buama, and the rest. The 98 MPs. And later, Chairman Sabosu said even the whole of majority caucus. They came and stood there and say, Oforiatta is involved in despicable conflict of interest. Abel, can you get your producer to replay that tape? Despicable. That's why I said conflict of interest. And they, as MPs, were compelled to kind of whitewash such despicable conduct. He's been involved in reckless borrowing. All the things they said. 98 MPs. And later, even Honorable Chairman Sabosu, God bless him, was able to rally all of them. He said all of them as majority. They are saying sack Oforiatta. And then the president could come back and do all things, and later was even threatening them. Threatening that people will be voted out at primaries. Then he says...
Did the president say that?
Did you hear him say that?
People, no, I mean the party... let me come this way. Let me look at the meeting. I understand they were threats. So that one is grapevine.
Even fielding people and give them in their...
Yes,
we know that. We don't know.
No, but it's politics, grapevine.
You don't do that.
Yes. All right, Martin, go ahead. Yes.
Don't do that.
Yes.
And then the president now said Oforiatta was leading the negotiations with the IMF, which is a very weak argument. Salon, weren't you there when Kwesi Kwarteng, the British finance minister, he was in Washington at the same IMF meetings. When he was recalled, he was removed, come back home, sacked quickly. And see the kind of weak arguments that the president is giving us. So I'm like, what? We've been sold the wrong product. Wrong. Look, Sarah, let me tell you, is when you want to know a Akufo-Addo, let me read this number of promises, these failed promises, then you understand. It says one.
Read just three.
It says one, I shall protect the public purse.
Lies.
2, I'm too old to steal your money. I have my money already. 3, Yatisikaso is a comedian. 4, try me and see. 5, I'm not corrupt and I'll never be corrupt. Now lie. Today you see. 6, I can develop Ghana without borrowing money. The money is here. 7, I will transform Ghana in 18 months. 8, I will not operate a family and friends government. 9, I will fight corruption with an ANAS principle. Lie.
So yes.
10,
So Martin, the point is. So the point is.
So you see, so Akufo is just a great deceiver. He deceives. He doesn't mean anything he says. He just likes, you see, he reads the mood of the country, then he jumps in. Very, very opportunistic. He rides on the people's emotions. So he rode on our emotions came into office, and now he has a field day. Salom, don't forget, at the end of President Akufo-Addo's presidency, his number one legacy, or let's call his legacy, is that he and his family became rich ahead of anything else. No. Now the family becoming rich is the first agenda. Free SHS there is now second. Yeah, I allowed him for it. I support free SHS, but the family becoming rich is his number one legacy. That his family here in Ofuriata became very, very rich.
Martin, that's fine.
Yes.
So let me come to you quickly. Then we can also
5 minutes or so.
Get into the Public Accounts Committee, the Auditor General's thing quickly.
I'll just start by saying that it's a very unfair and unfortunate comment about saying that Akufo-Addo has destroyed our democracy. Everybody and the style they like to operate. You might want it, or you might like him, or you might not like him. One day,
even
maybe
if over 70% of Ghanaians say that the country is headed the wrong way.
Which 70%?
From CDD reports, from the
Can I deliver? You've given me 5 minutes. So every interjection, I'll take a minute.
We have to do that.
Thank you very much. So when you say that it's unfair, I mean, he has a style. One day, I believe that you'll be praised for it. Listen, even Nkrumah was run down when he was president. They called him a dictator. They said so many things about him. Today, we are praising Nkrumah. So you might not like his style, but he has a style of doing certain things. Now, coming back to the ministerial thing, when you look at the ministers that he's put in place, over 90% of them are already MPs. Over 90. Do your calculations and see. You realize that when he tells you, I'm protecting the public purse, as he's saying, if I've brought 90 MPs who are already on payroll, whether you put them there or not, they're on payroll. As compared to previous governments that you will get about 40% of the people not being MPs. You realize that he's putting something substantial in place. He cannot, in this difficult times, say that, listen, I'm going to cut down on the size, especially when you know that there are issues. We have serious economic issues. You have serious issues with sometimes even the Auditor General report. When most agencies, you have to supervise before
people be elevated.
I'm coming until you put things in place. So when you have about 90% plus of your MPs being already of your ministers being already MPs, at least you have a fair amount or a sizable amount that are already in government. Look at these moves that he made, talking about the reshuffle. 7 people were moved around. Out of the 7, only 1 person came from outside and who is not an MP. That is Asamoah Barton for chieftaincy. The rest are already in the system. And the rest are already MPs. So where has it gone wrong there? You see, sometimes when we are doing these comparisons, let's be really, really circumspect. And also, let's try and analyze it from a lens that is not political. Otherwise, we spoil the conversation, and what happens is that we dirty the waters, as if the person is not being rational or it's not being reasonable. But he's looked at all these things. You took, Alan resigned. Alan wasn't an MP. Akoto resigned. Akoto wasn't an MP. Edu Boahen left office. He wasn't an MP. 3 people who are not MPs have left, and 1 person replaces that. Just one person replaced all these 3. I mean, isn't it cutting down on some of these expenditures? Let us look at it holistically. We talked about the 30% pay cuts. The 30% pay cuts, the onus was given to the accountants, controller and accountant general to make sure that they do all those things before people are even paid. So before you even get your payment, the money has been taken off. What now we need to do is to ask the accountant general or the controller and accountant general to tell us how much has been received so far and what their monies have been used for. I believe that it's been used for some of these government machineries that have been going on. But it's supposed, with now that we've brought about the opening of the, the information, right information, which was even done under the same president, which we are now criminalizing him. I mean, he's done well. We can get any information we want. So once we ask the accountant general to at least give us a brief on what has been gotten so far, what the money has been used for and everything, I believe that you will give us that result. And so we should see that most of these MPs, ministers that we are at least trying to put in place are going to continue with the programs and policies that are already there to make sure that they are really aligned. And before you can say that, okay, MPs go back, even if you move the MPs that go back to work, but I'm cutting down, they will still receive the salaries that they are receiving.
I see.
To finish on Eduji's point that he said, help me to help you. You see, sometimes let us not misconstrue what people say. Minister is looking at the economy that is going down. He's looking at rebounding this economy. We are in an economic crisis. He says, help me to bring the economy back on track. And by helping me, it also helps you to also get your funding or your monies that you've put in bonds and everything to be at par at what it is now. Where has it gone wrong?
Very wrong.
Let us not try and spoil things because we have our political lens or we want to rain or shine, come into government. So whatever anyone says, we want to destroy it and make it as if the person is being too over political or too being in a conscious situation where he wants to destroy things. So please, sometimes let's put the political lens aside and look at it holistically.
Interesting point.
And it will help
interesting
all of
point
us.
you made about the 3 guys leaving government and
Alan, Akuffo, and
3
Edubu.
MPs coming. Very interesting. I've not really looked at that in terms of its
and
impact
one
on
only
the
one
expenditure.
person coming back.
So yes. So Alan, not an MP. Sophia Akuffo, not an MP. And which other one?
Edubu Ahin,
not an MP. And then now we have Katie Amon, who is an MP.
Yeah.
We have
Obi Amwa,
who is an MP.
And also Amin Anta, who is
that's
also
an interesting
MP.
one, though. But let's see. So we'll take a short break. We'll return, and then we'll quickly deal with the matter of the Auditor General's report and his running issues with the AG. We'll just look at it briefly. Public interest versus legality of the publication. This is the big issue. We'll be right back.